This week on NWP, it's another one of these. Hello everyone and welcome to Nerds Without Pants, episode 132. We cover everything while burying it all. I am Julian, coming at you live from the Roach Motel that is my new apartment. I'm joined as always by Patrick.
I still exist.
I don't think there was a question of that, but I'm glad to hear it. And Angelo.
I have a mouse farm of a house every winter. I guess that counts for something.
They're kind of cuddly though. Roaches.
No. Yeah, see, but they crap everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
And it's real nasty. As long as they stay in the basement, we're kind of okay.
Yeah.
I lived with a dog in my bed for a week.
That's exactly the same. That is the literal same problem that I'm having right now. They are like the sand in Anakin Skywalker's boots. They get everywhere. Like they are in the boxes that I am unpacking right now. And
Kefka's boots.
Or Kefka's boots, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It is terrible. I am not pleased with my new dominion. But shout out to Raymond, one of the movers, because he turned out to be not only a gamer, but a really big podcast fan, and I let him know about the show, and he while he was helping me move, subscribed to the show. Hopefully he's still listening. If you are, hey there. But he was also a really big Resident Evil 7 fan, so he might have unsubscribed after the last episode. We'll see. You know, always cool to be able to clue someone new into the show. Again, I've said it's sort of like the 108 stars on Suikoden. Like, we have so few listeners that I can almost name them all off by name. So whenever we get a new one, it's like, oh yeah, you were a new member of the party. You know, you're going to help us defeat evil. So
yeah, I think we got a couple new listeners.
We need more healers.
These last couple, yeah, another healer of mine subscribed to the cast, and we might be getting a new review. I'm pretty sure it had to go up for quality control, though. I'm not sure what happened, but
sometimes it takes a long time for those reviews to pop up. I've noticed, because I've had people tell me that they reviewed the show, and then it's weeks before it pops up for whatever reason.
It may or may not be explicit content. I'm not.
Yeah, I don't know how much they police that stuff. Well, I guess we'll see. And we'll see what we're going to do with the rest of this episode as we jump into stage select. Oh wait, no, hold on. Sorry. I'm not going to do that right now, because there's one other thing before we jump into stage select that I almost forgot. I don't know how I forgot to do it last time, but I wanted to give a big shout out in like our little like housekeeping section to Bobby Bronson, I guess formerly of the TNB podcast. I don't know if they have officially ended or if they are just having trouble recording, but they haven't recorded an episode in a long time. But he did our new logo, which you will sort of notice when you listen to the show. Like, if for some weird reason, at least for the iTunes podcast app, like the new logo pops up when you search for the show, but then when you're listening to the show, it's the old logo. So I don't know. It's weird, but we have a new logo. It's also on our Twitter page. So, once again, thanks to Bobby for that. He worked on it for a really long time. So, yeah, now we'll do stage select. Stage select this week was my topic. I wanted to keep it a little simple this week. I just wanted, at least for the hosts, to know what video game that's never received a sequel would you very desperately like to receive a sequel to? our like listeners definitely gave us more than one each, but I thought we would try to keep it a little tighter. This will probably still be like an hour and a half discussion, but but
Wait, you said minimum of 3.
No. I said maximum of 3.
Oh,
We heard minimum.
Okay.
Oh shit.
I'm just kidding. I do have 4 though.
Of course you do.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a while, folks. Settle in.
Angelo and Patrick didn't do the reading.
I read it, but I read it wrong.
We did extra.
Apparently.
We're so extra.
That's right. Bonus points and bonus content. Well, let me just get mine out of the way first then, because I just have the one. Maybe I'll throw out some more as we go. There's a lot of old and classic games that never received sequels that I could try to mine, but I kind of wanted to make it at least a little bit plausible, like, so it's not too pie in the sky, like, maybe this could actually happen one day. But the game that I desperately need a sequel to, that I talk about, I feel like I've brought it up a lot recently on the show, maybe not, it's not one I talk about all the time. Asura's Wrath.
Yeah.
I need a sequel to this game now, like, so badly. Because I think it was, like, the first game was just on the cusp of being the next big franchise. The only problem is that the game is like 75% quick time cutscenes, 15% shooter parts, like Panzer Dragoon, and then like another like 5% that's just like actual like action game fighting. I don't know if that actually adds up to 100, but you know what I'm getting at. There's not a lot there gameplay wise, because a lot of the gameplay is definitely like the cutscenes. It's sort of like Heavy Rain or Indigo Prophecy or things like that. And they do those really, really well. But you can, when you're playing when you actually have full control over Asura, you're like, there's something almost great here, but they miss the mark like so wildly. Like, literally, you have a move that pops enemies up into the air, but no way to follow up. They just hang in the air, and you're like, I want to jump up there and juggle you, or something. Like, come on, we've been doing this since 2002. Like freaking Dante.
Yeah, exactly.
My dream would be for CyberConnect 2 to still do all of the cutscene stuff, because they're the ones who developed the whole game. But I would want Platinum to do the combat. Hopefully the good Platinum. Not the Ninja Turtles or Near Platinum.
Yeah.
I want the Vanquish and Bayonetta Platinum. I want the good team. I want the good shit.
Bayonetta.
Yes. Especially now. Japan is having a renaissance with development. Like, I feel like last generation, they were falling behind as far as technology and stuff goes. But now that they understand how to utilize the current tech and everything, like they are once again cranking out like some of the most amazing gameplay experiences. And I think a sequel to Asura's Wrath could be amazing. And, like Capcom is known for like taking chances on games that, were a little iffy the first time out. And to be fair, Asura's Wrath, it did way better than they expected it to, but it's always those Capcom sequels, right? That end up cementing a franchise. Devil May Cry 2 notwithstanding. But yes, that's what Julian wants. I need it. I need it now.
So I have to ask a question about this, because this will alter my list somewhat.
Sure.
If the people who created the original game said they were doing a sequel, but that was 2 years ago and we haven't heard anything since, and it's a fairly small. No.
I'll allow it.
Okay.
But now you have to say it, because now I'm curious.
Oh, because we're not going in order anyway. We're not like picking. Yeah. Right. So Rollers of the Realm.
Oh.
They announced a sequel 2 years ago and said we'll have more for you next year, and 2017 has come and gone with nothing.
Well, it's not really over.
Yeah. The only way to find that announcement is to search the Twitter feed. It's not on their site or anything.
Okay, because I could have sworn, and we talked about this recently, but I thought they were working on some like racing style game that looked a lot like Patrick's friend that we had on the show, their game Omnibus. Like it had that type of graphic style to it. Yeah,
they're working on other games and stuff, but they announced that and never said anything. afterwards. And they specifically said, we'll have more for you next year, and then silence.
Yeah.
So that's definitely, I mean, I loved that first game, but boy, it had issues. The more I think about it, well, not boy, it had issues, like huge issues, but it was like, wow, great concept. Great first attempt.
Right.
Please follow this up with something better. You know, that kind of thing.
Which is very video games. Like I feel like it's
Absolutely.
very rare that, you know, a first game in a series just like knocks it completely out of the park. It's usually like, oh, this is really good, but,
right.
You know.
Again, I mean, you could look at Mega Man versus Mega Man 2.
Yeah.
Like, that's the prime example of this.
Yeah. Assassin's Creed versus Assassin's Creed 2, right?
Yeah. Boy, I do not. My first experience with Assassin's Creed was the first Assassin's Creed, and that's why I haven't gone back to it. And people are like, no, Assassin's Creed 2 is better, it's different, play it. And I'm just like...
See, I got through that anyway.
I will someday,
I mean,
maybe.
the story was still good, but the game really sucked. The second one, that was one of the bigger leaps from one game to another.
Yeah.
You knew what they wanted to do, but they just had to get something out there after, like 30 million in costs or something.
It seemed like a really good proof of concept more than a game, sort of like what I'm here.
Yeah.
Like what I have seen of Sea of Thieves for Xbox One seems to be very much that, where it's like, all right, this is a great proof of concept. Now go make the game, but that's what they're selling you. It's like, no, wait, guys, this is not a full product. But I got to ask you, Angelo. So are they completely silent in particular, or are they just silent on Rollers of the Realm 2?
I think they're just silent on Rollers of the Realm 2.
Okay.
I haven't seen anything on my feed in a while, but I follow so many people now that it's easy for me to miss things.
Right.
I could do a quick fact check, but I don't know. Why not? Anyway, we can move on while I'm doing this, but that's for obvious reasons. And I was real excited for that game, you know, when it was announced and when it came out, and then when I played it, and then when I reviewed it, I never stopped being excited for it.
Yeah.
But, you know, it was really like, great guys, not perfect, but great. And I mean, you can poke holes in everything. There's no perfect game, right? Like, we just talked about how much I love Mario Odyssey, but boy, I can talk about 3 in particular things where I felt like the camera was just like, I'm going to murder you, and I'm going to try very hard to do so. So, like, there's flaws in every game. There's missteps all over the place.
So, let me, you being the pinball master and also being an RPG fan, what would you need from a Rollers of the Realm 2?
So, the story itself was kind of generic and tropey. I would want something a little more like, and I understand why they did that, right? Like, there's enough new in this game where we don't necessarily have to, almost to an extent where maybe they thought if they went in some crazy narrative direction with it, it might be too jarring, right?
Right.
Take those restraints off, please. It started to feel repetitive after a point. It started to feel like there's tons more you could do with pinball, guys. I mean, there's tons more things that you could throw in here and video game-rise. And it was almost like, well, time, budget, everything, and it's not going to be a huge, big, you know, $59.99 release or whatever. You know, it's going to be more like your 20. I think it came out at like 29 or something around there. I forget. It wasn't that expensive. It was a download game.
Yeah.
So they were working within that framework, and the game shows. You know what I mean? It just feels more like one of those small budget games. And it's kind of like, we got the proof of concept out of the way. Somebody needs to pick you guys up and fund you to make the big one. But also, maybe that'll never happen because it's kind of a niche thing, too. Right?
Yeah.
Like, how many people are out there looking for a pinball RPG hybrid?
Yeah.
Probably not many.
Angelo Grant.
Even bigger games aren't being funded on Kickstarter that much anymore. Even games that I want to see a sequel to, like Eternal Darkness, was trying to have a Kickstarter and didn't even meet its goals. But like, that's a game that should get a sequel and is not going to get one because even the people who say that they want one won't support it. Like, I mean, even though I want it, I was going to buy the game. I didn't support it up front. I thought there would be way more people who wanted it, though. There's just
right. So there's all sorts of reasons for that.
Yeah.
And we could get into it, but this is not, we don't have the time for that.
Well,
but I will just say that I don't think it's harder to kickstart video games than it is other things. Like, if you're going on Kickstarter to kickstart a toy, you can be like, I have a cast of this toy. Look, I have a prototype model. Look, it works. I just need to mass produce it, right? You can have all of the concept work done. Whereas I'm not concept work. You can have all the prototyping done and show them this and we just need money to make the finished product, right? Because all the software and all the stuff to demo that exists. Video games, you could maybe put together a video and show people, but when we're done, we think this is what it's going to look like. Mm-hmm. We sure hope so.
The graphics won't be this good, though.
I'm still waiting on Bloodstained.
Yeah.
Still patiently waiting for my physical copy of Bloodstained. I will say that game is looking really good, though.
Yeah.
I played the demo of it on PC, and it looks, feels, and plays like a Castlevania, of the EGA era. So, I am not worried about it. I will wait as long as it takes, but with the Eternal Darkness, like spiritual successor or whatever, like that was unfortunately just a case of people being really upset and feeling betrayed by, anybody affiliated with Dennis Dyack and Silicon Knights and him, even with him not being like the head person, him just being attached to it was enough to torpedo that.
Yeah, nobody trusts him.
But I wonder, does Nintendo own that IP? They probably do, right?
I mean, they brought it in as their only big mature game for the GameCube, so I don't see why they wouldn't, but why else would they have not greenlit a sequel with, they don't have any other properties like that.
But I think it's probably one of those things where they're like, because here's the thing with Nintendo, right, is that they have made it very clear that they don't want to cater to the hardcore gamer anymore, but every once in a while they throw us a bone, but when they do, it's like we prove them right, because they're like, hey, you really wanted this, it didn't sell. So, that's the thing, is that we can make so much more money out of Mario Kart 9 than we will Eternal Darkness 2. And that's just the sad reality of it. Because I would love Eternal Darkness 2. Holy crap.
Yeah. You need to flood the market with games like that on the same system, though. I mean, not flood, but you have 5 to 10 good ones instead of just one, because no one's going to buy, even a killer app like Halo. It didn't make everybody buy the system, but if you've got 5 to 10 good exclusives of that type, then people will all buy them if they're going to play that type of game. But the same people that play that game are not going to want to play Mario Kart in a lot of cases.
Right. Or both, right? I'm a person who would play Mario Kart and Eternal Darkness.
I would, yeah.
I think all of us are. But I think the smart thing to do there would be if they shot for a smaller project. They were we're going to make this a $30 download only title.
Yeah, like a Hellblade. Right?
Yeah, exactly. I think Hellblade is a wonderful sign of what could come. And I hope that people take notice of that. And I hope that Hellblade ends up selling even better, because I think it sold 500,000 units, which made it profitable. But I was still hoping that would be a million or more, just to really stick it to people. Hey, look, this works, right? But maybe they just need to release on Xbox One as well, and they'll pick up that other 500,000 copies sold or whatever. Yeah, I would love to see Nintendo mine some of their more obscure franchises in a smaller format, if that makes sense.
So, quick follow-up to my earlier statement. I was able to the Rollers of the Realm Twitter account tweets so infrequently that I was able to scroll back to the original tweet I was talking about. Which was in December of 2015.
Oh, that's a bad sign.
That's a bad sign. However, if we slide all the way up to, why did Nintendo do their Labo thing? I just missed it. January of this year, dreaming about cardboard flippers and plunger for a Rollers sequel for Labo. Now, that's obviously a joke.
Or just thinking out loud.
They're still talking about a sequel, so the concept isn't dead, at least.
Yeah.
And they did say they were actively working on it, but it might have been one of those things where they were just we're working on it. We got to show it for now and work on this car thing, because that's actually marketable. I don't know.
Right.
So yeah, still waiting on that.
Also could have been a situation where they were so excited about it that they jumped the gun, where maybe they really shouldn't have said anything until 2018.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, they were just saying we're working on one, but they probably shouldn't have said they were working on one.
Yeah.
Anyway, I have another pick. So
give it to us.
There was this game that I was real excited about, And I think it's a good game, okay? Don't get me wrong. But I think when you hear about the things that went into this game, you would understand why my expectations were here and the delivery was here. But that's not necessarily an issue, and I'll kind of get... So, the Final Fantasy team is getting back together, right? You've got Uematsu, you've got Sakaguchi, you've got all the people from the Final Fantasy games you know and love making a new game.
I'm listening.
Label. Yep. It even has a name that's a play on Final Fantasy. Any bells ringing yet?
Lost Odyssey?
The Last Story.
Oh, right. Okay.
Right. See, and that's what everybody is freaking doing, because that was everybody's reaction to that game. Oh, right. This was good. I'm okay now. I'm moving on. Right. Because it was a good game, but it was just a good game. Right. I want to see a sequel to that, and we're not going to, but I want to see a sequel to that because, oh man, I almost feel like if they had some momentum, it would be, again, the Mega Man 1 effect. And that's what a lot of these sequels, that's why I want to see a lot of these that are on my list. Because I think that they are good candidates for the Mega Man 1 effect, where your first game is like, we put this thing together, it works, we're onto something, but we can't just really like smith it into something that's super great and really functional, right?
Right.
We need another round. Let's build it again, but this time we will learn from our mistakes and make a better game. And Final Fantasy, the series itself, has been just sort of iterations, one after another, sometimes hitting out of the park, sometimes not so much. The very second Final Fantasy game is a glitch-ridden mess because they decided, hey, let's take a whole new approach to leveling because our last round of experimentation worked so well. And it did. Final Fantasy, the original Final Fantasy, as generic as it is now, was a very experimental game when it came out.
Yeah.
They were the first people to kind of throw, as far as I know, into RPGs the concept of elemental weaknesses. And bonuses, and they were the first people to manage on a console RPG, multiple party members. The only thing that came before that was Dragon Quest, and it was just, you do X damage. There was no categorization of that. It was just, you did this much damage.
Right.
And if you had armor, you reduced your damage by the factor of that armor. It was that simple of a game.
It was certainly my first experience
Final
with
Fantasy
that, and most people's, so...
Yeah, and then Final Fantasy comes in along, and it's like, oh, one person, how about 4? Oh, hey, you cast fire in an ice thing, and it does double damage. How cool is that? Oh, these people can only equip this armor. And this is all very tried and true, like, fantasy tropes, but it was the first time that had really been reflected in a video game. And, I don't know, I feel like The Last Story was going after something, like some sort of a tactical hybrid that it didn't quite land. It's still a good game, but what if they had more time? What if they took another crack at it? So that's why I want to see another one of those.
I haven't played it, but I own it. I think I ended up picking up all of those final RPGs on the Wii, right? Because was it was that Pandora's Tower? Was Xenosaga the other one, or was there another one?
Yeah, Xenosaga. It wasn't Xenosaga. It was Xenoblade Chronicles.
Oh yeah, sorry, Xenoblade. Yeah.
Yeah. But those were the 3.
Okay, yeah, so I have all those now. And the funny thing is that, I don't know if I'm going to actually unpack my games in this place, although maybe I need to make sure that, like, they don't get roaches crawling all over them. But anyway, for some reason, I really want to play my Wii, of all things. Like, I've picked up a few games recently, like Silent Hill Shattered Memories, which is supposed to be, like, one of the most unique games in the series, and I really want to play Last Story as well.
Yeah. Shattered Memories is pretty cool. It's slow, though.
That's fine with me.
It's not like, man, though, what a neat game. I played that. It's first person, and you're using the Wii Remote as like a flashlight.
And it psychoanalyzes you as you play.
It kind of, yeah, it does kind of like cater itself, I guess, a little bit to your decisions, which is neat.
Yeah. But yeah, and, unfortunately, I don't even know, I guess Mistwalker is only doing mobile at this point, right? Like...
They're doing really good on mobile, though, and that's why it's not going to change anytime soon. Like, they just did a sequel to Terra Battle, and apparently that's also doing well.
Right.
I was recently playing the Wii as well, and I got into Sin and Punishment for a little while, just like an afternoon with a friend, and I was just thinking that, as far as I know, that needs a sequel, too.
Well, it got one.
It did.
Or wait, that was
Sin
the
and Punishment
sequel.
is our successor.
Wait,
Isn't-
but which one was it? Was the N64 one first?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
I didn't know there
And
was
then-
one
and then the
before
Wii.
it because it was called Star Successor. I guess it
Star Successor.
made sense that it would be the second one. But
But where did... Yeah, I think it was N64 import game.
Wasn't it? What was the one on Genesis? What am I thinking of? Help me out here.
No, you're thinking... I don't know what you're thinking of. I mean,
Oh,
it's a
game,
treasure.
though.
It's treasure. But...
And it's running gunny, kind of like that, but not. Oh, crap.
Panzer Dragoon?
No.
That's the only other thing I know
well,
that's
whatever.
like it. I don't.
I can picture it in my head, dude.
I don't know.
Do you know what do you know the game I'm talking about, though?
No.
Is it like no? Okay. I'll have to do
Because
something.
like treasure, I mean, I'm thinking like Gunstar Heroes.
Yeah.
Or
That might be
That's
what
what I
I'm
was
thinking
thinking
of,
of.
but that's run and gun. That's not.
yeah,
That's more like Metal Slug.
yeah.
I want to say there was one where it had that perspective of you, like with the screen, like looking kind of that way.
Are you thinking of maybe like Burning Rangers?
Maybe I am.
But that was
That's
Sega.
not is that that wasn't Treasure though?
No,
Star
no,
Fox?
Oh, you know what game I'm thinking of, but I'm thinking of it wrong, like real wrong. Like I don't know how this happened in my brain. Is freaking Alien Soldier.
Okay, yeah, I don't know where that came from.
I don't know how I did that either. It's a treasure game. I got that part right, but I'm looking at screenshots and I'm like, my brain did something weird with this where it had a different perspective because I've never played this game.
Right.
I just know of it. So I was going purely on memory and my memory was wrong. I'm going to have to watch a video of that and kind of like cleanse that. Wow.
What's Treasure done
Well,
recently?
All right.
Oh,
Treasure
they haven't
doing
done
now?
nothing. I think they're gone. The last I heard is that they have an office somewhere, but like they have zero output. I think someone owns like the IP rights to everything, but
Right.
nothing's being done. And I don't think any of the developers or designers are still there, which is a shame because they weren't really in the market of making sequels. They did a handful of them on the GBA. Like there's a Gunstar Heroes sequel and a Guardian Heroes sequel on there.
Right.
But other than that, they try to like really, do something different every time out the gate. And, yeah, it's a shame. Like they were.
Well, they revisited things a few times. Like, you know, they did Bangai-O a few times. Like that. There's multiple different versions of that.
But I don't think they did a sequel. I think they just ported it to different things.
No, there's definitely different versions, but it's more like, how do I want to say this? So it's still Bangai-O, right? But it's like tweaked. And there's like, oh, here's a bunch of new levels for this one and remove some of the other things. Like it's,
okay.
It's not like, oh, this is Bangai-O 2. There's no Bangai-O 2.
Right. It's sort
They
of
do
like the
sequels.
Street Fighter 2 Special Championship Edition, you know, thing, right?
Right.
It's a version of the game, but it's special for this particular platform.
Right. Like the closest thing is like, Radiant Silvergun to Ikaruga or Sin and Punishment to Sin and Punishment Star Successor, right? Like that. That's actually probably the most direct sequel they have is the Sin and Punishment Star Successor.
Well, you know what doesn't have a sequel from an old company that needs to put it out there, and this is the segment we were talking about in the first place. Blast Corps, Rare, fuck, man. But why? Why wouldn't they put out another one?
That's a good question, actually, because especially back then, Nintendo was like their first party stuff was just like printing money.
Yeah.
So I don't
It
know
was
what
so
I don't know what
fun.
you would do with that now.
I mean, you could put something on the Switch that's kind of like augmented reality where you're trying to like move nukes that are going to destruct in real life or something like that, like by moving your Switch and like that's how like the car moves. I don't know. But like there could be something really innovative and like rescue-y in real life with it or even, you know, just if it's on the tablet itself where you can move with like your fingers or something like that in kind of an operation type sense. If you like had to really be precise about it and if it hit anything, it would explode. That would be really cool. I really like Blast Corps growing up. It has a nostalgic memory in my heart for going over to my friend's place, but that was like right when Rare was at their peak or just about to be at least. And they had so many good games that haven't had sequels in like 10 to 15 years that it's just, you could put a lot of different,
20.
Yeah.
That's another one that I think Nintendo should do in like a smaller scope, download only or something like that. But yeah, like focus on a really simple art style, but then just keep it to where you can tear everything down, right? Because that was the fun of that game, is that everything was destructible. So don't try to go super hardcore on the textures and stuff like that, but instead make it like crazy physics and just level everything in this playing field if you have to, and that would be pretty neat.
Yeah, we need some more like demo destructible type games like that are just way over the top, like Crash Test Dummies or something, where just everything's flying everywhere. All their limbs are going all over the place. And I think we've just gotten too realistic. And even if it's a game about like nuclear weaponry being defective and stuff like that could have a place today, as well as like a funny version of it. Like, we don't have to get all Call of Duty when we're talking about
it. Right. Oh, I'm excited for that, Red Faction Guerrilla remastered edition.
Yeah.
Like I didn't get to play that the first time it came around, and I loved the first Red Faction game. So, and everything I heard about that one was that, oh yeah, you just grab this giant sledgehammer and just go to town in every building.
It sounds silly in all the right ways.
Yes.
Like it's what you want from a video game.
Yeah.
Yes. And there's nothing wrong with that. We need some video games sometime.
Give me some video game in my video games.
That's right. It's like they said at the beginning of Saints Row 4, less mercy killing, more mirth, which was a direct jab at Grand Theft Auto 4 with its mercy killing mission. Did y'all have any others before we move on to listeners?
I mean, I was thinking Mighty Number 9 because I want to see that, but also, I don't know.
Yeah, if you want to bring back a Keiji Inafune game that never got a sequel, I would say Shadow of Rome. Because that game was really cool. And again, another Capcom game that was like just on the cusp of being something super special, but is firmly in the B game category. Yeah. Like all the Gladiator stuff is cool, but then all the forced stealth stuff where you have a character that can't defend himself. No, that's no bueno.
Well, I got one more, and it's kind of controversial, and it won't ever be made, but that's mostly because of the developer. Fez is a really good game.
I mean, you're probably not wrong, but also I can't do it. I just can't do it. You know what I mean?
It's one of the best puzzle games that I've ever played. I still haven't figured out many of the hard puzzles in that game. He's such a talented creator, and I just wish that he would mature.
Right. I also wish that he would mature.
Right. And that's the thing, like, you almost wonder, oh, geez.
And he's probably saying, I'm fucking mature right now.
I'm going to delete my Twitter account again.
Goddamn these nerds without pants.
I'm deleting everything I've ever made. Screw you.
You don't deserve me.
Right. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I will freely admit that I'm a hypocrite because I'm very much like the separate the art from the artist type of person.
You know, if they...
But I can't with that one. Like, I just don't want to do it.
There's only a couple things. Well, it's different if, like, okay, I understand you're a creative person, but I don't trust you to lead. Like, you know, when somebody appears on Kickstarter, right? Like, that's a whole nother thing. I could definitely, because you're funding that particular person to do a particular job. I will absolutely not give money to certain people on Kickstarter because I just frankly don't trust them to complete the thing.
Right.
Hindsight is 20/20. Anyway, there are maybe only, and I don't want to go down this trail, but Phil Fish is one of them. There are two people who I have a very hard time giving money to.
Right. And
and that's it.
Maybe I'm not being a hypocrite because, like, so I was thinking about, like, the whole Kingdom Come Deliverance debacle, but that was a game developed by a large team, right? And it's just the one guy that is controversial. Whereas with Fez, that is all Phil Fish, right? So, I mean, I guess he had like another guy working with him, but really it's Phil Fish.
He was the sound guy. I mean.
Right. So,
or in some cases, it's a very small team where, like, one guy is like, I'm putting this creative team together. I'm handpicking these people. Yeah. And there's like 5 of them.
Right. And it's like, but we're a band, but the lead singer is really the person, right? Like, the rest of them are interchangeable.
And that's where I think, in situations like that, I totally understand going, I cannot give you guys money. I am sorry.
Yeah.
But also the Kingdom Come Deliverance guy. I mean, maybe I haven't seen everything, right? But I don't understand what if you're of a, we don't need to get,
forget it. Yeah. We don't need to get into it.
It's political, so forget it. But I just don't understand getting that upset of somebody for being politically different, but maybe there's more. I'm done.
Yeah.
We'll move on. I'm almost sorry I brought it up.
I really want to play that game though. Like, I feel like not enough people are talking about it, like, especially on, like, video game podcasts and stuff like that, because so many of them just don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole, but that game looks really cool.
It does. I want to get it.
Yeah. But that's one I gotta wait for it to get cheaper, because it being so long and also being so janky, the whole, you can't save your game unless you, like, drink this particular, like, alcohol in the game
save your schnapps.
Yeah, that is not a good mechanic, right? Like I need them to patch that out before I play that game. That's just dumb.
But also, it's called Save Your Schnapps.
Yes, that.
Come on.
I do like that.
That's all right.
I've never heard of that.
Because it's not real, Patrick. It's a video game.
I'm going to try it in real life.
Try to make some? I'll bet you somebody has.
Oh, yeah.
I'll bet you somebody has. We're done with this section.
Well, we've got lovely listener submissions, so they definitely supplied way more than I did, because I followed the rules.
If we have a second,
yes,
I do have a piece of news that is very much related to this topic.
Sure.
So, believe it or not, this happens in the board game community as well, and I'm only mentioning this because it just hit on Kickstarter. There has been a game that literally the board game community has been screaming for a revisit to. It's kind of just like a childhood nostalgia piece.
Jumanji.
And there's a company named Restoration Games who has already definitely proven themselves in like 5 or so other games, and they got the rights to make a new Fireball Island. Which, if you are not familiar with Fireball Island, anybody who's like a kid, who was a kid when I was a kid will remember the board game that was a molded plastic thing with chutes all over it, and people moving around an island and this giant stone head that you drop marbles into, and it would race down and knock some people off. I
remember the ad for it and remember really wanting it as a kid, but not being able to get it. Like that and Hero Quest were like the 2 board games that I wanted more than anything.
So Fireball Island is coming back. It is much more than the sort of mousetrappy game it was before. It's being handled by Restoration Games. There's some real gamery elements in it now. It went on Kickstarter. This is the fun part. It went on Kickstarter with the modest goal of $250,000 US 2 days ago. It has exceeded 1 million.
Nice. I believe it.
Wow.
So, I'm real curious about this thing. I don't know if I'm going to back it, but I'm real curious about this thing. It looks cool, but I figured there might be some other only 90s kids will remember kids out there that would get a kick out of that.
Yeah.
So.
Let me know if they ever do something like that with Hero Quest, because I will jump on that, because it's like $400 if you want to get like a complete Hero Quest on eBay and stuff like that. Not that I have anybody to play with, but maybe one day.
Right. I mean, they probably won't, only because there's so many dungeon crawl board games out there now, which is kind of unfortunate in a way, because it just means that people aren't going to chase down whatever it takes to get that IP when they could just be like, well, there's already Descent, and there's already the new Doom game, and there's already, I don't know, Omega Protocol. There's already all these other games out there that do this so well.
But can I be a dwarf and go through dungeons?
In Zombicide, Zombicide Black Plague, you can be a dwarf and freaking level zombies with a giant hammer.
No, but I want to fight. No, I don't want to fight zombies. I want to fight like skeleton warriors and dragons and stuff.
How about a zombie dragon?
Zombie dragon will work.
I think there's a zombie dragon.
Is Game of Thrones?
There's Game of Thrones games too.
Wait. So are there actually board games that are like Hero Quest, where it's like with the little like simple to play? Because that was the thing about Hero Quest. It was like baby's first D&D, right? Like it was very
that sounds like
simple.
D&D.
Yeah.
There are absolutely games that cover the entire spectrum when it comes to dungeon crawlers. I can't think of a more entry-level one at the top of my head because most reviewers and stuff are talking about the more complex ones, but I definitely know that they're out there. I'll tell you what, I could probably do some research and get back to you and find you one if you want, if you're specifically looking for the Hero Quest thing. I think what you probably won't find is the component level that Hero Quest had.
Right.
But,
because if they're making these entry-level games, it's going to be like, maybe you'll have some nice miniatures, but you won't have the cool doors and the treasure chests and that stuff.
And that's what made that game so drool-worthy for me, was like, oh, there's these archways and like the treasure chests and the little figures and, it just looks so cool. And it also looks like my mom would never let me have.
And I mean, the games that do have that are like there's Conan. There was a Conan game that came out. There's two of them, so be careful which one you get, because one of them is the one that was on Kickstarter, and it's freaking awesome. Has like freaking 2 boxes worth of just goodies that you litter the playfield with. Like doors and gates and boxes and all different minis for all these different things. Oh, the same people, by the way, are making a Batman game where Batman is ripping around Gotham using that same system, and that looks awesome as well. But that's probably been enough for Kickstarter for now. We can get to the listeners, because I'm sure you have it up on your screen.
As far as like playing games go, I was wondering if Austin has any like board game stores. Like I just found one on Clark and Belmont in Chicago by this friend of mine's place, and it's awesome that is still in business, where on the same block, People Play Games is actually going out of business after 10 years, which is like a small video game used store that has like every one of the old games that you could possibly want that are slightly overpriced because it's in Chicago. But it's interesting to note that, that went out of business, like a small video game store, but the board game place that just has board games and people playing there every night is still running strong.
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, Angela knows this better than anybody. Board games are having such a renaissance right now, but Austin is lousy with places where you can sit down and play board games. They're mostly tied to comic book stores. Like a lot of the comic book stores in town also have a place where you can play board games. Like the biggest one is Dragon's Lair, where I would say 80% of the store is tables set up for playing.
Cool.
And then we even have this place called Vigilante. They call it a gastropub. I hate that term. It used to just be called Vigilante Bar and Grill.
What's gastropub mean? They have like steampunk stuff?
No, it means that they serve food and booze, but I don't know, it sounds like some sort of trendy thing that just makes me, like, to me, like the term gastro, it's like,
that sounds,
you're having a problem there.
That sounds like the wrong end of the digestive tract to be talking about.
Yes.
Like, I don't want to hear about your intestines.
Sounds like it came out of Austin City Limits or something.
It's a very modern Austin Reed hipster type of thing where they serve like super fancy food. But then you can check out board games and rent them for the table and stuff like that. And they have Cards Against Humanity night and Trivia night and D&D night and stuff like that. Yeah. And my local comic book store, Tribe, they do the same thing. They do like different board games every night. And it's always hopping in there in the evenings. Like they don't close until 11 now.
Cool.
I live in the middle of nowhere in upstate New York, and there are 2 board game stores within 5-minute driving distance of my house.
Yeah, it's crazy now.
That's insane.
Coincidence?
I mean, it's kind of crazy. I
kept them both in business.
I have no.
Angela's putting their kids through college. Moving on to listener comments. Over at pixelbit.com, first up is Xrian, who gave us 3. Number 3 is Downhill Domination for PS2. He says a damn fun bike racing game that was a cross of SSX and Road Rash. I would love a new iteration of this. It's funny that this and Kinetica, another racing game I highly considered for the stage select, were both made by Sony's Santa Monica studio. They need to get back into the quirky racing game scene again. What else is there to do after the PS4 God of War releases? PS4 God of War 2, and then PS4 God of War 3, and then PS4 God of War Ascension 2.
Yeah.
Sad to say. I mean, I agree with you, Xrian. Like
PS Vita.
Right. Let's bring that back. Xrian's number 2, I'm taking issue with because he wants a sequel to Phantasy Star Online 3 Card Revolution.
Oh, I was on board and he's like, wait, 3? There was a third one? I thought we were on, oh, right.
Right. And he cops to it. He says, I know that this is technically part of a series, but, Phantasy Star Online 3 was a card game which was completely different from any Phantasy Star game. I'd love a sequel to it since it's hard to find a game that scratches that itch for me. Cold Step Saga, maybe?
I knew that was coming. Oh my word. The minute he started talking about it, I was like, here it comes.
I need some sort of sting to put, like, some sort of drop for the show every time somebody mentions Cold Step Saga now.
They are still doing that over on Digital and Dice. Like, if I show up in the chat, there's Cold Step Saga jokes immediately.
Yeah.
It has not died.
I mean, it's timeless.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah. It was pretty bad.
Xrian's number 1 is a game that I have never played but really wanted to. It's Binary Domain for Xbox 360. I think it might be on PS3 also.
I think it is.
He says, this game was great, and I feel it could have been excellent if it had a little more push. Story was very interesting, and the gameplay was solid to good. They tried some interesting concepts that could have been fleshed out much better in a sequel. A real hidden gem of the last generation, in my opinion. Do you know this one, Patrick?
I'm pretty sure I got that on PS Plus one month, but never played it.
Oh yeah? You should fire it up if you've got it. It's like a 4-character third-person shooter a la Gears of War, but it's got this really quirky sense of humor. Like, one of the characters in your party is a robot with a French accent. And the other, like, really big claim to fame was that it used voice, like, you could use the microphone for the system to give voice commands to the characters, but your mileage may vary as to how successful that worked for you.
I was going to say that sounds like a bad idea. I've used voice recognition a few times, and it's just...
But, you know,
I have not perfected that.
But it's gotten a lot better. So that,
sure.
And it's an interesting concept. You know, I'm a pretty quiet person when I play, so I don't necessarily want to be that person, like talking to my, you know, electronic partners, but I still think it's a pretty nifty idea.
Yeah.
Sort of like, when they did Manhunt for PS2, and if you used the PlayStation 2 headset for online games, like, you would actually hear the person on your or you know, in your headpiece, like the guy that I guess tells you what to do. Like, normally you would hear it just in the game, but if you had the headset on, like, he would actually be speaking to you through your headset, which I thought was a really neat idea.
Yeah, Odama did that too. Did the whole, like, you commanded us stuff with your voice.
Yeah. I think there's some neat stuff that they can do with that. Superstep says, well, he echoes you, Patrick. He says, I so badly want an Eternal Darkness sequel, and the failure of that Kickstarter depresses me.
Yeah, so bad.
Yeah.
That's one man's fault.
The combat was so cool in Eternal Darkness. Like, the way you could target different body parts. Like, that was so neat.
Like, people talk about how, like, the original Metal Gear Solid threw them for a loop with the Psycho Mantis boss, but, like, that whole game throws you for a loop as far as, like, when you even die. Like, I don't even know sometimes. Like, fake screens of death.
Walk into a room, your character's head explodes, and then it's like, oh, just kidding.
Yeah.
Except when it actually happens for real.
And it'll just change characters, like, very quickly, like, a very postmodern way. Like, you'll go, like, all the way back in time or something like that. It's just like,
yeah,
I don't even know what's happening from one room to another.
I think there were, like, 7 or 8 characters that you played in that game. Something like that. It was a lot.
Absolutely nuts. Very postmodern. And it's, we'll get to it more, but it's going to be a theme in this podcast because Metal Gear Solid 2 is one of the first games to ever do that.
Yeah. Moving on, Superstep says, I don't necessarily want a direct sequel to Ghost Trick, but I would love a game with those mechanics set in that universe. That's that Capcom portable game, right?
Ghost Trick?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking of I just got a new phone today, and I was thinking about re-downloading it because it's like free. I mean, I downloaded it before, at least for $1 at the most, but like, you can get it on portable. It's also on 3DS, though. I'm pretty sure.
Cool.
Yeah, like if you want to pay for it.
Yeah. If I remember correctly, it was sort of like Geist, but without the shootery parts, right? Like you're just like a disembodied spirit that's like possessing different things.
Puzzle game, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Geist had puzzles that involved you possessing things, but then you go shoot.
This was more of like setting up Rube Goldberg-esque kind of things, chain reactions and stuff, I think.
Okay.
It is regular DS, though, not 3DS.
Oh, okay. Regular DS. Lastly, Superstep says, I would love a new Shovel Knight, treasure trove as well. I guess you can come up with Kickstarter promised spin-off games as sequels, but I still want more Shovel Knight, not including Plague Knight mechanics. Spectre Knight was the most fun for me. Did you see their really lame April Fool's thing, Angelo?
No, I did not.
It was them announcing, Shovel Knight 64, which I've actually heard the designer, like, kind of tease before. But it was just like Shovel Knight running through like a bunch of like 2D screens, and then it just says Shovel Knight 64. And I was like, okay, well, if you really wanted to do this April Fool's joke right, you should have had like an actual like Mario 64 era looking Shovel Knight running around.
Yeah, really, really polygonal.
Yeah.
Everything ran at like very, very much sub 30 frames per second.
Yes. That's what you need to do to really, like sail that home. Next up is a rare comment from Daft Man, who says, I'd love to get a sequel to Astro Boy Omega Factor from the GBA, which was a fantastic action game from Treasure. And he says, really anything from Treasure would be great these days.
Speaking of Treasure,
and holy crap, Astro Boy Omega Factor is amazing. Like I've
never played it.
I'm really glad that I have it in my collection, because it's also worth a little bit of money now. But
stupid expensive.
It's not super expensive, but I mean, I think it's good. Like a complete copy is going to run you about $75. So, you know, that's pretty high for a GBA game, I would think. But I haven't really I haven't really been paying too close attention to GBA prices. I was just surprised looking through my collection. I was like, oh dang, that's pricey.
What's sad is if I saw this game, I would have never given it a second look.
Really?
Never. Yeah. Well, just GBA Astro Boy. I think, when did that come out? 2000. When did that come out? It says 2004 in North America. I just had to look it up. Yeah, I don't know.
I didn't know any Astro Boy properties were any good, but like, where would you start if like you know that like the Wachowski brothers tried to make it good and couldn't, but like everybody who has a nostalgic draw to the franchise really loves it. Like, what should we look at?
Oh, I mean, I the only thing I know of Astro Boy is that GBA game. I mean, I'm aware of the franchise, but I've never seen any of the anime. I've never read any of the comics. I didn't watch the movie.
Yeah. I always thought it was like mediocre rated, so I never got into it. But I mean, there's enough time for everything.
Well, there's not enough time for everything. That's a problem.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, if there's something worth looking at, though, I'll try.
Yeah. Daft Man continues with, he says, another great one-and-done GBA game was Drill Dozer from Game Freak. Such a fun, unique game from the folks that normally just pump out Pokemon. I wish they got to do original games more often. I would also love a proper sequel to The Legend of Zelda 4 Sword Adventures. Not a lot of people were able to get enough people and Game Boys and link cables together to play that game properly, but I've been through that game twice and it's such an amazing multiplayer experience. Triforce Heroes was fun, but it played very differently. Give me the action focus of Four Swords.
You know, I've been trying my entire life to get 4 people together to play that game, and I think it would happen on the Switch a lot easier. But
yeah, that's a really good point. I would prefer them revisit Pac-Man Versus myself, but yeah.
They even gave Four Swords out for free for a little while on like the 3DS or something like that. And I mean, I didn't pay for it, but I have it. I still can't get people to play with me. Like, what the
yeah, I think I have it too, and I downloaded it because it was free, but I was like, I'm never going to play this.
I know, because friend codes,
right? Well, I don't even know if you could play that one online. I think you still had to be like linked up.
Yeah,
Four Swords you had to be linked up.
Yeah,
and we're like all about digital friendships now, not like His real life crap.
Tyrone Swift, like, I'm really happy with this one, because it's actually one of the games that led me to start building a video game collection, oddly enough. He says, I'm gonna say PsyOps, the Mindgate Conspiracy. This was a pretty cool game that had a lot of fun ideas. I think it could have done some cool stuff, maybe given a few sequels. I had a good time using my Mind Force to suspend guys in the air and shoot them, and then literally blow enemies' minds to refill my powers. It was good fun with ragdoll physics. I can't remember if the story was any good or not. Probably not. And I do remember the protagonist looking the same as every other protagonist of that time, but I swear there was something here. I doubt we will ever know, though. Oh well. PsyOps is the perfect example of a game that was punching too far above its weight class. It was way too ambitious for the PS2 era because of all the stuff they were doing with physics and stuff like that. I think the closest that you can get to a sequel is if you want to try to play like the Star Wars Force Unleashed games, because you're kind of doing the same type of stuff, but not to the level that you did in PsyOps. Because in PsyOps, he had, I think, like 4 or 5 different, like, psi powers. Like, he had the telekinetics, obviously, but I think you could also, like, possess people. You could, like, do pyrotechnics, and I forget the others, but there's a lot of really neat stuff there. But yeah, super generic looking protagonist, like literally just, you know, white dude with the Jason Statham hair going on. But really, like, the enemies were really designed interestingly. Like one of the enemies was, like, this huge black guy, like we're talking about like 5 feet wide, but like all muscle, and also could like I think in the first like cutscene, he like lifts an entire like tanker truck with his mind. Just some really neat stuff in there. I always wanted a sequel to that, but I remember picking that game up and thinking, this is back when I used to think that I was going to get into video game development. And I was like, I should start picking up games that weren't necessarily big blockbuster hits, but have cool ideas to try to research them, right? And this is one of the first games I picked up where I was like, there's something here. You know, this is very much a B tier game, but there is some interesting stuff in here that should be revisited. And
a lot of the times the first version of the game is not good. We've been talking about like it's basically a model for what's to come. A lot of the times I will start now with the second game just because I know the first iteration is basically that proof of concept. But I'm also glad that he said Ops, because it made me remember of another game that I would be remiss not to mention at least one more time, that it needs another version or I want to play it some more, which is Winback Covert Ops.
Was there a sequel? I think there was a sequel to Winback.
If there is, I don't know about it. And fuck, I need to stop doing these random on the fly ones. Because the ones I had were... The ones I actually wrote down did not have sequels, but damn it. Well, it's a sequel.
Winback 2, Project Poseidon for PS2.
What the fuck?
But yeah, Winback is a really cool game.
Okay.
I'm right there with you.
And Winback 2 doesn't exist as far as I know until just now. So
you can get it new for $20 on Amazon right now.
I don't want it. I want my Winback 2, not my Winback 2.
What do you think about the Syndicate reboot?
I never played it, but I really wanted to because Jeff Gerstmann was like so into it. And it sounds really cool.
It sounds a lot like what he was just describing.
As far as like PsyOps?
Yeah.
Well, I think the Syndicate one was definitely more like hacking into people.
Kind of the same thing though. You know, making their brain explode because you feel like it.
Well, yeah, I guess in that respect. But I mean, I think the bread and butter of PsyOps was picking dudes up and then flinging them off of ledges or into each other or against the wall until they're dead.
Telekinesis.
That was the go-to move. Like, it was one of those games where you really would shoot people as an afterthought.
Because why not pick them up with your mind and throw them?
I mean, that's what I would do.
Yeah.
I should not have telekinetic powers.
Yeah.
I will not use them for good.
No. I mean, I would, but I would also not.
It's at my discretion.
If you've ever seen Chronicle, like, I would totally end up, like, throwing a guy off of a cliff because of road rage. Like, it's not a good... I should not have powers.
I think I'd definitely fall in the chaotic good spectrum there, maybe.
I'd be good about it.
Maybe I wouldn't throw him off the cliff. I would just, like, pull his, like, tires out from under him so that he can't move anywhere. Be like, that's what you get. Go get towed. Next up is San Andreas, who has a few for us. First up is Rogue Galaxy. He says this.
Oh, yeah.
He says this would probably be my favorite one-off game I can think of, and it's from the same company that made Ni no Kuni, no less. It's a shame this game never took off. As a spacefaring RPG, I honestly enjoyed this game a lot more than Mass Effect. Ooh, that's bold word, San Andreas.
Depends which Mass Effect.
Well, that too. I haven't played Rogue Galaxy, but I really wanted to. It looked so good.
It's kind of unofficially related to the Dark Cloud games.
Is it actually somewhat related, or just because it's level 5?
Just because it's them, and it's the same people, and it's the same concept, but in a different... It's
different setting.
Oh, does it do like the random dungeon type stuff and the building?
Now I'm confused. I'm going to have to look into this again, because I don't know if it's randomly generated. If it is, it's way better than what they were doing in the original Dark Cloud, and probably Dark Cloud 2. But it might not be. It might have random elements. I know, but I don't know if the levels are randomly generated.
Okay.
That was one of the first games that got support as PlayStation trophies after the fact, like a re-release on PS4, I think. You can.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you can get it now with PlayStation trophy support. I remember they also released Dark Cloud 2 around the same time. I'm pretty sure, but
that's neat.
Yeah.
I like it when they add trophies into like the older games and stuff like that. Like that's because that, and I know it's silly, but I like trophies and I like achievements, and it gives you kind of a reason to keep going in a game. Like that's honestly why like when people are like really excited about games coming to the Switch as well, I'm like, yeah, but the Switch isn't going to have the achievements. It is on my Xbox. Yeah. I'm going to play it on my Xbox.
That is really a drawback, and I've told them that before, but they don't believe it. Like, they want to do their own thing. Maybe they need, like, to make something called, like, stickers or something like that, where, like, there's hard to find stickers that you could use. I don't know. I've pitched them a few things, but they don't really care. Rogue Galaxy, on the other hand, does care, and they added the support.
San Andreas' second one is one that's been talked about a lot lately, Okami. He says, This is one of those games that I felt never got a proper sequel. The DS follow-up didn't do justice to the scope and grandeur of the PS2 game, which sits in my top 20 list of all-time favorite games, and is my favorite Zelda-style game that isn't a Zelda game. Given that Okami didn't sell well, we were probably lucky to even get a DS sequel, but this situation illustrated a lot of the frustration I felt with the late 2000s in gaming. A lot of sequels to great console games ended up on DS and PSP instead of consoles due to economic issues, and were hamstrung by the constraints of those platforms, not only in graphics but in terms of gameplay structure. Hopefully the Switch will mean the end of stripped-down console-to-handheld sequels. I can see that complaint, but I'm at a point now where it's like, if me getting a sequel to a game that I really want a sequel to means that I have to play it on my 3DS, I'm kind of okay with that, like, as long as the game is designed well. But maybe that's more of his complaint, is that like these games were not optimized for those systems, right?
It has trophies.
That's true.
No, I mean, I wanted to play the sequel too, but I own the first game, and as some of you may know, this is the only game that's ever been stolen from me.
Yeah, you mentioned that on the show.
Yeah, but this is one that also got re-released recently on the PS4, and a game that we should all play again because it's got trophy support now.
I saw it for like $20 on Xbox One at Target, and I didn't know if that's what it released at or if like it just dropped in price already. Cause I felt like it probably would have come out at like $40, but maybe, maybe that was just a cynical part of me. Maybe it actually did come out at 20, which is awesome. I never did get around to playing it, but it's also hella long, so.
Did people not like Okamaden?
I don't know. I don't remember hearing a lot about it when it came out. So I had honestly forgotten about it. So like, if he hadn't said that in his comment, I would have totally been like, oh yeah, that one needs a sequel.
Oh yeah. Well, if he hadn't said that, I was going to call him out for it because I remembered that.
I think like this is one of the few cases where Okami on like DS or something would be in some respects better than on like PlayStation, because you could actually use the stylus in order to make a lot of the gestures you would have to do anyway.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, maybe it just wasn't implemented well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very early recognition software, so it's not going to be the greatest thing, and there's not that many kanji maybe you could even make, so it would be very hard to be accurate with it and precise. I'm sure there were 15 to 20 gestures or something like that, but it's not like it should be. You can make any kanji that you would want or something, and you would just be able to kind of bloom all these different weapons and things like that. Or yeah.
Lastly, San Andreas has one. Well, this one is a weird one. Eternal Sonata. He says this was a charming little RPG for the 360 and PS3 that was based very loosely on the life of Frédéric Chopin. It would have been interesting to explore this theme in other games. The only problem with that is that, like, you're playing in the dying mind of Chopin. So I don't know really how you do a sequel to that unless you just like drop that part of it and you're just like, hey, that world that was like in his fever dream was actually real.
Wait, like I was actually talking to my roommate about like playing this game soon, and she's gonna get it from her brother, and I'm gonna like start it because that is such a great concept, and I never got into it like when it first came out, just because there's so many RPGs, so little time. But this is what you could do. Like Final Fantasy, you could just like switch from one mind to another.
Oh, that's a thought. Ooh, what if you did it in like, instead of like a classical composer, what if you did it in like Jimi Hendrix or something like that?
Yeah, or Dr. Dre.
Oh.
Or Tupac.
I would play the crap out of a Jimi Hendrix one.
Yeah. I would too. Right at the end of his like longest acid trip or something right before he dies. That'd be crazy.
Yeah, you could do some awesome stuff with that.
I mean, even Van Gogh or something.
Yeah. My only problem is that, like, I don't know if the cutesy nature of Eternal Sonata necessarily meshes well with that, but Eternal Sonata is just a beautiful little game. I'm excited for you to play it, Patrick.
Yeah, I mean, I know I love Mozart. I'm going to love that, and I love RPGs, so.
Yeah.
Well, it's not like you're not going to be playing it to Chopin's pieces. Like, it's got modern music and stuff like that.
I don't know why I said Mozart. I'm thinking Mozart because that's the sequel.
Well, classical.
That has got to be the sequel.
But and it also gives you like some really nice history lessons on the life of Chopin between the chapters, which is really cool. And then it does play his pieces, and it tells you like kind of what his mindset was when he composed them, or where he was in his life when he made this particular piece of music. So it gives you some context for it. Man, I want to revisit that game. It's so good.
Yeah, me too.
We need more games like that like border the line between entertainment and like learning.
Education. Yeah, definitely.
Education.
Yeah. Or they work it in there in a clever way. It's not just like so many educational games are just not fun at all.
Yeah.
Like, make a good video game first, and then and this is something they do well in board games. Like, here's a great video game, but oh cool, it's historically themed, and we'll tell you all about the events that are happening while you're playing the game. Yeah. That's great. People love that crap.
That's actually the thing that Assassin's Creed does better than anything.
Yeah.
Well,
no, he's not wrong. I mean, they definitely play fast and loose with some of it, but it's still enough to give you like a jumping off point where it's like, hey, this is pretty interesting. Let me go read a book about it, right?
As far as an architectural perspective, though, like you can go up to like the Leaning Tower of Pisa or something and find out what it actually is, or the aqueducts, or in whatever game you are in. It's going to give you like 3 to 5 paragraphs about what actually happened. But those are more like the audio clips or something like that in a BioShock, or, you know.
Well, and I think they just added like some sort of museum mode to Assassin's Creed Origins.
Really?
They did.
Like intended for educational purposes, where it takes out, I think, all of the combat and all of the action, and it's just you exploring. And I think there's like little nodes and stuff that give you like a lot of historical context to what's in the game and stuff like that, which that's really neat, you know? Mm-hmm. I think more games should do that.
There's actually even a game you can only play at the Louvre, and I think I've talked about it 1 or 2 other times maybe in the course of the podcast, but you can only get it if you actually go to the Louvre, and it's like an audio guide, but it's a full representation of the Louvre itself, and I would just like to buy that because it's like you can do a digital like walking tour, you can walk through for yourself, but they give it to everybody if you go there in Paris, and that's like maybe the best art exhibit in the entire world. I would say if it's not that, it's second.
It's the most expensive one, maybe.
It's the biggest one, too. Like, it took me 2 days to go, like, through the entire thing, the entire day.
I'm still waiting for them to, like, start doing that stuff with VR. Like, you know, be able to visit places in virtual reality that you could never visit on your own, or would be too expensive, or maybe if you're, you know, not able enough to do it. Like, I think that'd be really cool.
This is, like, first iterations of it, you know? They're going to try to get better with it, but...
Yeah. Lastly, on Pixelbit, and then we have some Twitter ones, Fire in the Hole says, a game that I always enjoyed that never got a sequel was The Legend of Dragoon. It was Sony's attempt to make a big-scale RPG like Final Fantasy VII. Although not as polished as Final Fantasy VII, it was still very good. The battle system was different in that you put the timed button presses for your attacks. Combat was even more fun once you gained the ability to transform into the Dragoon form. It was awesome pulling off your special moves. The story of Dart was interesting the entire way through, from his quest to kill the Black Monster, meeting who would become your party members, unexpected deaths, and twists along the way. I always heard rumors that Sony was making a sequel that was cancelled. Oh, that bums me out. I haven't played Legend of Dragoon, but it's another one that I really wish that I had, and thinking back, I don't know why I didn't play it, because I was Mr. Role-Playing Game back at Gamefellas, and somehow that was like one of the only major releases that I didn't play. And I don't know why, because it's right up my alley. Yeah.
I played that game, and even back when it came out, I felt like it was too long.
Oh yeah?
But I did finish it. It was too long. But it was the first time I had seen that whole, there was a square that would kind of like spin in, and when it centered over the target, you had to hit the button at the right time, and you would combo your attacks. It was fun. Okay, so we're talking about something that I remember from a long time ago and might be rumor, so really grain of salt the crap out of this, but I remember hearing somewhere that there was definitely a sequel in development, that the first game was a success, and Square went in and like literally ripped the talent out of the design team somehow, or bought the game and then laid everyone off, or something crazy like that. Like Square went in there and made sure the sequel didn't happen somehow.
Must have been Enix. Square.
No, that sounds more like a Square side.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to be a fanboy.
Would want to do some research on that though.
That's interesting. I mean, yeah, I guess if they headhunted a lot of the talent,
or they did something to sabotage a sequel.
Yeah.
Nomura on it.
I'm just thinking that like there isn't really like a Sony of Japan studio anymore, is there? Like, most of Sony's first-party stuff comes from the West, right? I'm trying to think of, like, the last thing that came out of, like, Sony of Japan.
Not very sure.
I mean, I just thought that was interesting, because...
Step your game up, Japan.
Well, especially now with, like so many, like, big hits coming out of Japan.
Yeah. Like, The World Ends With You Too. Fuck.
No, there's one you could. That hasn't appeared on the list yet.
No, hey, that's one that hasn't had a sequel for real. I nominate it.
Isn't it? Oh no, it's not getting one. It's getting a port right to the Switch.
Is it?
They
really?
didn't announce a sequel.
It was ported to the iOS, so I'm sure it's easy to port. But
well, they're gonna have to do some work on it because the Switch only has the one screen, so.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting to see how they handle the battle system and everything.
Maybe you have to play like docked or something, like, or like at home and you have the Switch in your hand, but
well, no, because they don't. I think they have actively kept that from being a thing.
Oh.
Yeah. So it would have to be all on the same screen, but maybe I don't know. I'd have to wait. Wait and see. Anyway, moving on to Twitter, we have a couple DMs. First one comes in from Jeffrey Struckhoff, on Twitter at JESTHOFF. He says, hey there, NWP. I'm a long-time listener, first-time answerer. I've been waiting in the shadows for the perfect time to strike. Bam! Number one is Kingdoms of Amalur, an amazing game filled with great fluid combat, likable characters, and filled with such love and care. Oh, it really inspired me to start my, own sort of world, which I put into a D&D campaign for all of my friends. I know it will never happen, especially since there was a huge lawsuit brought against it, but it's definitely a fantasy of mine. That's another one of those games that I really love the concept of, and for whatever reason, I've bounced off of it multiple times, but not because the game is bad. It's just that I play it and I get a ways into it and then I move on to something else. But holy crap, was that game cool. And kind of one of the last, like, games that I think of when I think of, like, the good EA. Cause there were a lot of, like, really smart things that EA did last generation, and one of them was like, kind of appreciating customers who bought a lot of their games by giving you little items and incentives, like, crossing over from game to game.
Wait, but
which was always really neat.
You're talking Kingdoms of Amalur, right? That's EA, but it was actually made by Kurt Schilling, the baseball player.
Well, it wasn't made by him, but
it was his company.
It was his studio. Yeah, but he didn't do anything.
No, but like, I mean, I'm just trying to say it's a lot smaller studio that put forth like a very concerted effort toward it, more so than EA, which mostly distributed it, right?
Well, they published it, and I'm sure that they had some help in polishing it. But that's the thing is that they were publishing some really cool games at this point. We'll get into Jeffrey's third one later because he brings up another one. But no, like if you downloaded the demo to Kingdoms of Amalur, you got like one of the weapons from that game in
one of the Mass Effect games.
In one of the Mass Effect games, and then
I think.
And then Kingdoms of Amalur, you could get Dragon Age armor, and there's a whole bunch of stuff like that going on. It was so cool. Yeah. It was like the more EA games that you played, the more stuff you got in each game, and it was like, oh, this is like. I don't know why nobody's like thought to do this since then. Like it rewards customer loyalty. Yeah. To like, you know, like, or brand loyalty, really.
Well, Blizzard does that. I mean, that's why everybody loves them, so.
Yeah. You know, it's like I fired up, Diablo 3 and I was like, why do I have these mercy wings? And I was like, oh, right, because I own Overwatch.
Nice.
Yeah. That's the only reason people play Heroes of the Storm.
Is to get the crossover stuff.
Yeah. Like, there were so many people on Overwatch, they were like, oh, I can't believe I have to play that game 25 times just to get this skin. I'm like, no, you don't. Like, I'm not going to.
In fact, you don't need that skin. The game will still be here and be the same.
Yeah, guess what? It doesn't do anything to your character, and you can't even see it unless you do an emote.
Yep.
Man, but dude, what if they did like a third person, like single player Overwatch game and all the skins that you had unlocked in regular Overwatch worked? Ooh. Think about that.
Oh, the skins.
That'd be awesome. That would actually cause me to go back to Overwatch and start like unlocking more skins. Just for the single player, spin-off. Jeffrey's number 2 is Dante's Inferno. He says, this was a really fun hack and slash game based on one of my favorite books. The first game left on a cliffhanger, and I would want to see what they could do next. But again, it's never going to happen. That's another game that I didn't play, but I applaud them. Oh, these are actually all EA games. That's kind of funny. I applaud them for attempting it. I thought it was a really nifty thing, and I have it. It's in my collection. I just need to fire it up, because I thought that was a really neat concept, like, of all things to adapt.
I played it. It's like a decent hack and slash, but the big draw there is just like the retelling of like one of the greatest epic poems of all time. So, yeah, and it sounds like, I mean, they took some serious liberties with it, but I still think it was a pretty neat idea. There's honestly no way, like, you can really faithfully recreate a poem in a lot of ways. Like Paradise Lost, for instance, they've been trying to make into a movie, but you can't, because how can you visualize complete darkness, which is supposedly what Satan is? Like one medium moving to another obviously won't work out in a lot of cases, so it's commendable to see that it worked out that well.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, there's a lot of like that hero, like epic poetry, like Beowulf. You know, you could do something like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The Odyssey.
Right. Even Beowulf, there's a lot of liberties taken in something like that, because it's like 4 pages. That's a really small poem, and they have to make it into an entire, epic or something like that. Or like I said, for Paradise Lost, like, how are you gonna show like a woman finding herself in a reflection and like pondering that for a long time, unless you do something more like Hellblade? Oh fuck, you could do it now.
There it is.
Patrick just won or like argued against himself and won.
Yeah, we're brainstorming here, and that would be innovative. Let's do it.
Well, I want them to do Jeffrey's third selection, which is Brutal Legend. He says, I actually really enjoyed the RTS gameplay of Brutal Legend. I think mostly because I had no idea what it was about when I bought it. I just love metal music, so I bought it. It was funny, fun, and had kick-ass music. I want more. I do too, but I don't want the RTS part. I wish that game had ended up being the metal Zelda that I thought it was going to be. Because that's really what it looked like.
Or at least the sort of comedic action game they marketed it as.
Yeah. And it has that in there, but then you get to the RTS stuff and it's like, wait, what? And then you find out that that's like the bulk of the game and you're like, what? But I mean, I love the characters. I love the art in that game. The music is phenomenal. The world is cool.
Sense of humor.
Yeah. Everything about that game, except for the RTS parts, is like really cool. And I would love a sequel. Even if they still had the RTS stuff in there now, with me knowing that it's going to be in there, I would probably be fine with it. It just came as like such a shocking twist. Where it's like, whoa, this is not what I signed up for. And also, I'm not good at this type of game. Philip at PK Becker says, as for stage select, Bulletstorm. That is all.
Sure. They were onto something.
Yeah, they were.
There's a lot of fun stuff in that game. It's just what they were chasing for the game, which was like this whole idea of, oh, you'll replay this a million times and just try to get a higher score. It's like, that's not really what people go to first-person shooters for, though, right? Like, that's more of there's other genres that people go to for that.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it couldn't be, and I appreciate the fact that they thought of, hey, let's take this old school score chase mechanic and put it into an FPS.
It's weird. There's just
Great
like, it's the perspective. Just people won't think about it, you know?
Well, right. And then if you remove that aspect from it, if you play it the way I probably would, which is just to complete it, it's real short.
Is it? I should finish it. Because I
think it,
3 to 5 hours, right?
That's
pretty much. I think so.
That ain't bad.
I think it's like 5.
I rented it. I still didn't even beat it. It was so over the top. I remember talking about this, and like I liked it, but for me, like a score-based game is going to be a top-down shooter.
Well, I also think that it was maybe ahead of its time. I think that in a post-Doom 2016 world, a Bulletstorm sequel does really, really well.
I was thinking that a game like Doom would be a game I would come back to play those levels over and over again and try to get higher scores. But like, short of Doom, I don't know what would do it for me.
Right. And I think a Bulletstorm 2, like if they could capture that speed, because Bulletstorm, if I remember, it wasn't quite as fast as Doom 2016, even though they had you doing a lot of moves and stuff like that. So if they could kind of capture that type of movement and speed, but still have the quirky moves and the score chase stuff and the sense of humor, I think it could actually do better than the original. But probably never going to happen.
Time to Beat says, on average, it runs about 8 hours.
That's still not bad. Like, when I hear a game can be beaten in 8 hours, I'm like, yes!
Yeah, it's a good thing now.
Yeah.
But that's the other thing, too. Like, if you're playing a game and you're like, well, I'm chasing a high score, like, if you're playing a shoot 'em up or a shooter, those are about half hour, maybe 40-minute games. And then you play them over and over again to get a high score, right? Mm-hmm. So it's in this weird spot where it's like it's too long to be a real score chase type of game, and it's too short to be a super involved, epic first-person shooter campaign thing. I think that was really the reason people were like, "Oh man, Bulletstorm not so good."
Yeah, I think a lot of it also had to do with like the marketing and stuff. Like it definitely came out in a time when a lot of people were like, no, games need to grow up, and this is like the opposite of games growing up. But I think people are now at a point where it's like, no, you know what, it's okay if like a game comes out that's kind of, silly and goofy and not trying to be, The Last of Us, right? Like not everything has to like try to reach those heights.
There's room for everyone.
Yes. Lastly, Jamie Alston at PixelJA says, Beyond Good and Evil. Technically it doesn't count since footage was shown of the prequel in progress, but it ain't here yet, so I'm sticking with my pick.
Yeah.
For years, I have wanted a true sequel to Beyond Good and Evil, ever since I saw that cliffhanger in the post-credits scene, showing that Jade's friend Paige was apparently becoming assimilated by an invasive alien force you've been fighting in the entire game. While Ubisoft is working on a prequel and calling it Beyond Good and Evil 2, it doesn't look like it's going to address anything that happens after that scene. And from what I've heard about the footage shown at E3 last year, this is #NotMySequel.
Yeah.
I am right there with you on all counts. There is so much wrong with that game, from the thematic elements to it being a prequel to Michel Ancel talking about having this giant solar system with different planets, like, and showing off like the scope of the ships and the worlds and everything. And it's like, no, dude, you need to release this as a $20 like Ubi art game. Like it needs to be like on the scale of Valiant Hearts, right? That's what they need to do. Like just give me the closure of the cliffhanger from Beyond Good and Evil 1, and then dust your hands off and say, that's it. We did Beyond Good and Evil 2. We're never touching it again, because there is no way that this makes a profit. I'm sorry. Like, it's just not. And especially with them, like, recently they were saying, like, oh yeah, we're gonna let you, like, create your own character, and it's gonna have, like, multiplayer and all this stuff. And it's like, guys, did you even play the game that you're making? Because that's not what Beyond Good and Evil was.
Let's be honest, there's a handful of people interested in a sequel. I'm sorry if you people think there's a ton of you. There's just not.
Yeah, so maybe they have to appeal to a new audience.
That handful of people is looking for a sequel to the game they played that is like the game they played.
Yeah.
And literally no one else is looking at this game. Those are the only people that care.
And to your point, Patrick, about reaching a new audience, like, it's already displaying the problems that I think the first game had, which was like, you got this game with like sentient pigs and a foul-mouthed monkey. Like, this is not going to appeal to a wide audience. Cause I mean, Beyond Good and Evil 1 is like hella French, and I think that's part of the reason why it didn't like reach mass appeal, is like, you've got this pig that's the character's uncle, and she's taking care of like llama and lamb children and stuff like that. And it's like, what even is this? You know? Right. And it's a charming game, but it's not a mass market game.
There are ways you can make it almost mass market, like cult following status that's really good, and maybe that could kind of take over in some worlds. But like, Image has a property called Elephant Man, and it's one of the best comics that's been out there for a while, and it deals with like all these animals that have been crossbred with people, and it's just absolutely crazy. It's like Blade Runner in the future, but if like an elephant were the Blade Runner. So there's some, I'm just trying to say there's people out there that will buy it, but it has to be probably, like you said, $10 to $20, and something they're not having to think that hard about it, versus like a full-fledged AAA title that people only buy once or twice a year.
Yeah. And that's my thing, is that I think the scope is just way off, and they're putting way too much pressure on this game. Like, that's all there is to it. Like,
I mean, you guys like it way more than me. Like, I just played it a little bit, but I can't be negative about creativity. I just really want it to succeed, but you're so right. The signs are there for failure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And what they've shown, I mean, it's really cool. And again, like, if you were doing like a brand new IP and you're showing me this like phenomenal like sense of scope and everything, I'm like, okay, yeah, you might have something here. But when you're talking about a sequel to a game that sold so poorly that it drops to $20 within 2 months of its release, sorry, like that's not the right way to go.
Your best bet, and I know this is probably going to, and I'm saying it's your best bet, not as in it's going to be a success if you do this, but if this is the best chance you have of making any money, is to make the game the fans of the original game actually want, and hope that they like proselytize this thing to all their gamer friends, right?
Right.
Because I feel like that's more of a thing now than it was then.
Definitely. And especially with like the streamers and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm,
and,
exactly.
And also, like, I will say that the audience has grown over the years, because it has become such a like cult classic, to where I think that it would sell more initially than the first game did, because the first game was like this new IP that came out in a very crowded holiday season. And it was a holiday season that not even the first Prince of Persia for PS2 did well in. So but since then, like, yeah, you could probably move 1 million units of that game, which I still think is pretty high, but it probably only sold like 150,000 or something with the first game, like when it was brand new. So I feel like that's the best you can hope for. But they're going to want this thing to sell like 8 million copies, and it ain't going to happen. Right. So that does it for listener comments on this Stage Select. Once again, we're at 1 hour and 40 minutes. Patrick, you have the next Stage Select pick, sir. What do you got for us for next episode?
This one's going to be really important for everybody's psyches, their personalities. It's really simple, but it's really It's really a choice you can never turn around on. And that is, what is your video game spirit animal character?
That's gonna take some thought.
So you mean like, what is your, not video game spirit animal, but your video game, like, what video game character would be your spirit video game character?
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah,
what you're
like
going for?
everybody
Okay,
talks
cool.
about spirit animals. Let's talk about spirit video game characters. Like if there was one thing that you were this. Like it's probably Ratchet for me, but let's not say it.
And also, Angelo, get hip to the lingo because that's what you say is like, you know, oh, Robert Downey Jr. is my spirit animal, right? Like that's a thing that people say.
Yeah.
So.
I've said that about a human being before. Yeah. I know that. But,
Do you guys have spirit animals? Like mine is
clear.
a fox. We all know this, but I thought it was a wolf for a long time. I mean, it takes a while for you to figure it out. So I suggest thinking early, thinking often. Who really are you?
It's totally a sloth for me.
Are you Mario?
I talk too much to be Mario.
I have no idea what my spirit animal or video game animal spirit thing is.
Well, you got 2 weeks to figure it out, Angelo. Listeners, if you want to submit to that, you can either head over to pixelbit.com and comment in the show thread for episode 132, or hit us up on Twitter at NWPcast. You can either tweet to us or send a DM. We're going to want those by 7:30 Central Time, April 19th. That's the next time we'll be recording. That's it for this edition of Stage Select, which means it's time for Consumption Junction.
There's a vision in your heart, only you can achieve. You can climb the highest mountains if you only believe. If you try to do your best, nothing stands in the way. So don't put off until tomorrow what you should do today. I remember I saw you shine like a diamond in the sky. Knew that you had a dream that would never die. Follow your dream, you got to follow it. Follow your dream, but don't you ever forget.
And Patrick, I actually want to hear from you first off this week because you had yourself a party, didn't you?
It was a small gathering, but
Well, how'd it go? Because you had talked about it last time about like doing the LAN stuff and, you know, excited to like play some Tekken and stuff. So what did you guys end up doing?
let me just say that people are lazy. And sometimes people say they're going to bring stuff like arcade systems and they don't do it. And then it makes you look like a liar. But you really just trusted someone else who has a business for that very thing and still fails. Oh, it's just hard
They
to
had
see.
one job.
Yeah. You had one job and you had a month and a half to get it done.
Well, that sucks.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good guy, but fuck. No, we had a good time anyway. It's just like some people who said they were coming for a month didn't bring their rigs, and other people like didn't bring their fight sticks. And I mean, we still played 4-player. Actually, most of the time we played 2-player like Tekken or Mortal Kombat. We played that for like almost the entire night, the first night.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we did that. We did some FIFA. I got like someone challenged me to FIFA. Are you kidding? Yeah, no, he beat me.
To be fair, it's been a while since you played some FIFA.
Yeah, it's been a while, and I didn't score till like the 70th minute, but I had like a ton of chances, and it was just like I was shooting wide right, wide left. I was splooging everywhere. It was just shot after shot after. All on the goalie, but none of them were going in. all over that goalie. No, it was fun. It was a good night, and the thing that I learned most that night is how to play as Noctis in Tekken, which is so fun. Like, he's one of my favorite characters in that game. But also, just that anybody could really pick that game up and do decent and feel really good at it. Although, we had more fun, I think, with Mortal Kombat in the end, and we played that through the end of the weekend. I had a friend come back even just because he wanted to play more of that. There's so many characters in that, like, and when you do a fatality and it looks good for the first time, people just absolutely go nuts, and it, like, makes the entire room, like, applaud you. It's, the match is already over, but it's just like, well done. Oh, you ripped his head off, and then you cut it in half. And I loved it. Like, I was playing a lot as, like, the downloadable characters, for instance, Sector, or I mean, it's like Triborg. You could be Smoke. I was Smoke for the first time since, like, the fourth one, maybe. You know, I hadn't played him in a while, and he has some really cool moves where you can, like, fall to the back of the screen and you could, like, dodge projectiles if you do it exactly right by going behind, like, a smoke screen, basically. And, like, my friends were even going, wait, man, like, you played this a lot, haven't you? I'm just like, no, it just looks really cool when I'm doing, like, one move. But yeah, I don't know what's happening. Like, you find the right character to be and you synergize with it, and all of a sudden in a game like that, it seems like you're pulling together 4 or 5 hit combos really quickly if you just, for some reason, happen to, I don't know, play that way. Like, I don't really know Smoke, but I do, like, down circles, like, back and forward a lot. And so if that happens to be similar to the moves, I'm going to figure it out right away just by, like, trial and error. And it was funny to see people, like, thinking, like, oh man, you played this a lot. And it was, like, my first time with the character, and I would just, like, hammer him. But like, it's that kind of a game where if you know combos that were in the past of those games, like, you kind of figure it out for yourself without even looking, or just you can even press pause and see the 5 best combo starters or moves that they would have in their version of that character, because there's 3 different versions of each character. There's so many different variables that go into Mortal Kombat, and that's what makes it so fun and why we played it for, like, 3 hours straight.
Damn.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
So is that all you guys got up to, or did you, like, do some board gaming, or
you know what,
branch into, like, some weird stuff? Like,
we went to a strip club.
Oh, that's not bad.
It wasn't video gaming, but I gamed life.
I just hope that you didn't act like the kid in, or the new kid in Fractured But Whole.
Oh man, that is the best. That mini game when you have to do a lap dance in the Fractured Butthole. I loved it. Which, by the way, I think I'm on my way to Patricking, because I'm very close to the end, and I haven't played it in, like, a month and a half.
Oh, dude, you need to see the end of that game. Do you know without spoiling, do you know who the actual bad guy is yet? Have you seen that?
I have no idea, honestly.
Oh, you need to get to the end of that game. It's also got one of my favorite endings of, like, a video game. It's so South Park. It's so great.
But should I play, like, the first one first before I finish the second one?
Nah.
Because they give you it, you know?
Yeah, I would, I mean, they're such different games. And I did play, a good couple hours of, Stick of Truth on my Xbox One, because I got it, you know, with the game too, and I was like, yeah, this game still holds up. It's still funny. It still plays really well. But they play so differently that, you know, I think you can go either way. You can either play them in order, or you can play them out of order. Doesn't really matter.
Do you know how I love it? I just don't want it to be over.
Right.
And then there's the DLC too, though. So
yeah, me and Angela were talking about that before we started recording, because I actually do have the season pass, because it came with my collector's edition of the game. So when I finally hook up my TV, which, like I said last time, I'm not going to do for a while, I need to, like, fire that up and do those 2 DLCs. They look pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was most of it, what we played, though. Mostly 2v2 competitive games. We tried to hook up. You're gonna love the poetic justice here. We tried to hook up a GameCube converter to the Wii U to play the new Smash Bros. Not new Smash Bros. I guess the new one now is the Switch one that hasn't come out, but the most new version, and we couldn't because it was hooked up to a hard drive that had all the games on it that were being emulated. So yeah, we could only play with like the actual like Wii controllers, and nobody wanted that imprecision, so we didn't even get to play Smash, but because it was emulated.
Well, that's what you get, but also like I feel that like unless you're like really hardcore serious about Smash, like I feel like even if it's like slightly off, like with the controls and stuff, like you're still gonna have a good time because it's just, you get like 4 people to just like pummel each other, right?
Right, that's what it should be. But no, my cybersecurity bros, when they get something that's not quite right, they want to configure it until they can play it the way they want to. Otherwise, they're not. They have to feel like they're in control of the system, not it's controlling you.
Right. Did you have anything else, or
no? That's
been kind of a slow couple weeks.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, those things I've been playing over and over, and yeah.
Yeah, I've been doing the moving game mostly, which was really difficult. Like, this move took a lot out of me, but I did end up picking up Detective Pikachu for 3DS, because that's like the only thing that I have like unpacked is my 3DS, and that game is hella charming.
Good.
It's really cool.
Better be.
It's got a nice little sense of humor to it. It looks really pretty. I've only done one case, so, I can't really speak to the difficulty yet, but I am a little bit worried that it might be too handholdy, like almost to like a childlike thing where you're like, hey, do you remember how, like, what this person said? And you're like, yeah, that's right. And it's like, okay, I would like to have maybe a little bit more challenge here, but maybe it's just because it was the introductory, case, right? But, so I'm not a Pokemon guy, as listeners know, but this game brings up a lot of questions. Because Detective Pikachu, he's a regular Pikachu, but for some reason the main character can hear him talk or can understand him. And as you're going around interviewing people and getting like evidence and cross-examining and stuff like that, you can go and talk to the Pokemon, and Detective Pikachu will translate for you. And you start to find out the Pokemon have a lot going on in their heads, and it makes you feel a little bit weird about, capturing them, putting them in balls, and then having them fight each other until they faint. Because they're smart. They're sentient creatures. They're not dogs and cats. They are,
right.
They've got brains that work and they communicate, and it makes things weird. And not in like a weird, like, like current state of game journalism, like, oh, I felt really bad about subjugating the orcs in Shadow of War. It's like, no, those things are like evil incarnate, and you're just basically like, getting them to join your side by like having them reject the darkness. Like, it's not whatever. These Pokemon are like innocent creatures that apparently have a lot going on in their social lives. And then, these stupid Pokemon, what do they call them? Pokemon hunters? No. Pokemon masters just come up, chuck a ball at them, capture them against their will, and then have them fight each other not to the death, but, till they freaking pass out.
That's torture.
It just seems wrong
it's
now.
Even worse than death.
I do not like that. I think that Detective Pikachu has proven that we have been wrong, all of us, for capturing Pokemon for 20 years and should reevaluate our lives. But the game's really good.
Yeah, that looks like something that was going to live or die based on its charm level, so...
Yeah.
Charm it up.
I'm glad it pulled it off.
Yeah, and the voice for Detective Pikachu is really good. I'm definitely in the camp that says that, if they do bring the movie over here, that they should get Danny DeVito to play the character, because that's definitely like the way Like, the guy playing Pikachu over here is definitely trying to channel that type of personality.
Really?
He's got like kind of a deep voice, and he's kind of a smooth talker, and he loves his coffee.
I did not see that coming at all.
It's really cool.
Oh my god.
I highly recommend it. The only reason I haven't done more than one case is because I also got into a free-to-play game on my phone, which doesn't happen very often these days, but it's kind of becoming a problem. Marvel Strike Force, which just came out, I think, a couple weeks ago. It's a nifty little RPG. To the point that I wish that it was a full-fledged RPG on the Switch or something instead of a free-to-play mobile game. Because it's that damn good. You have, a bunch of different characters that you have, like, actual named heroes and villains, but you also have, like, the hand assassin or the Hydra sniper, like just these, like, grunt-type characters that you unlock or find. And there's 5 different classes, and you assemble a team of 5, and if you want, you can make it a very balanced team, or you can go really heavy on one type of class, whatever you want to do. And there's stat buffs and stat debuffs, and there's, like, different moves. There's actually a pretty good amount of strategy for a free-to-play mobile game. And the game is really pretty, and the animations are cool. It's really good. But I've reached that point where it's like, now I can only play it for like a few minutes before I run out of things to do, because it's that type of progression system. And it's like, man, like, I wish Disney didn't own Marvel, because I wish that we had like actual Marvel video games coming out, because like, this is like a perfect proof of concept for a full-on Marvel role-playing game, which I desperately need. And I'm not saying like a Diablo style, like Ultimate Alliance. I mean like a full on like turn-based role-playing game. The combat is really, really good. And I've put some money into it because I really enjoy it. And I got Captain America from it because I spent some money, and I'm glad because he's freaking awesome. But, then you get into the part where it's like, it doesn't force you to pay, right? Like it's not one of those pay to win games. You can pay to like speed things up and everything. But I will say that like, if you want to get new characters, that part, it really sucks, because, it's sort of like, card-based free-to-play games like Clash Royale, where it's like, oh, in order to unlock this character, you need like 45 cards or 45 shards of this character, right? But like the drop rates are so pathetic that it like, I can't imagine just, other than the ones that they gave me during the tutorial and stuff like that, like I can't imagine actually unlocking one of these, like Thor is like 100 shards, and you can only get those shards from playing this particular mode. And it's like, that's never gonna happen, right? Like it would take me like literal months of playing this game every day to even get close. And it's like, all right, guys,
that much.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Like I'm probably gonna play this for like a month or 2 tops, but it's really good, and it's taken up like a lot of my free time, where it's like literally so I needed to get dinner before we started recording, but then I was playing Marvel Strike Force, and I was like, oh shit, I need to go get food, because like we're like half an hour away from recording. It's that type of addiction.
Right. I know you said shards instead of cards, but when you said cards, it actually reminded me of another game that I gave out a try in the last month a few times, and I even mentioned the fact that I may be Ratchet already, but Ratchet & Clank was the last PS Plus game, and I forgot to tell you that I got back into that first, remaster of the first version, which I never even finished the first time because I was really young, and I just like didn't really understand what was going on in the games yet. Even that was like the first kind of game I played like it, because there's that and Jak and Daxter, and I played those games, but not to completion a lot. Like many games, but they do have a new card game collecting mechanism in this version of Ratchet & Clank, where you have to even collect like 5 duplicates of the card to turn in some stuff. And I'm not even sure what it's about yet, but like, it's just another mechanic I've never seen in a Ratchet & Clank game before. And for some reason, like, maybe we're flooding ourselves with card collecting games. Like, all I need is Hearthstone, let's be honest, but...
Yeah, Hearthstone has started a trend, which I think is going to be a quickly bursting bubble, because now you've got the Elder Scrolls card game, you've got the Witcher card game.
Yeah. Which is good.
There's the Dota card game coming out. Well, yeah, but there's only so many people, like, the people who are into those types of games, there's only so many of them, and they can only support so many of these games.
Yeah, they can only
right?
be into 2 or 3 tops, and there's Magic too, that all the ones that are the most hardcore are going to be into, and
exactly.
You can only be in a few of those.
Yeah. Same thing with like first person shooters, like, like if or I guess now the big thing is like the battle royale style, where everybody's like rushing towards like implementing that into their games, and it's like, guys, the fans of these types of games they only have time for like one of these.
Yeah.
Right. And apparently now it's Fortnite. It's no longer PUBG, but
it reminds me of MMOs, really, because like there's so many expansions that you got to keep up with. And like, I mean, some of us will just come back to it years later and play the story, like I will with Final Fantasy. But yeah, I didn't even talk about Fortnite because I'm a little embarrassed that I was playing that.
No, I don't think you should be. Like, that game looks really cool.
It's charming, just like Pikachu.
Yeah, it looks way better than what I was expecting it to be. I'm still surprised that they didn't get like a big backlash for releasing a non-finished game as a $60 release on store shelves when it's going to be free to play.
I'm glad I got it for free in the first place, because my friend bought like a pack that was $100 and you got to like give out a free game to somebody, and I got it. So shout out to Mike Mac Lethal, friend of mine on PlayStation. Don't tell him who you are. His name's Mac Lethal, and just be weird about it. But no, he's great. He owns a couple of insurance companies, and I play with him a lot. He's one of the master playtime jammers. And the only thing I really got to say I would maybe even complain about is there's only one map for Battle Royale, and that's like actually an afterthought in the game. The game that we started out with was a 4-player co-op game that we stopped playing because there weren't enough bad guys, and we were always too good for the map, and also weren't able to unlock our perks right. Like, so I was really underpowered, they were really overpowered, but like we were still easily winning. And the Battle Royale is a lot more fun. I just hope that there are more settings that they plop into it and keep going with it.
Yeah. And to be fair, I mean, that's all that. Well, I think PUBG now has like 2 maps, but I mean, for the longest time, it was just the one as well.
Really?
Like, yeah.
That's crazy. I mean, it's huge.
Yeah, and I think because it's sort of like a Dota thing where it's like, no, you're going to learn every nook and cranny of this map, and that's literally the game. Like, being able to suss out like, oh, I landed here, so I know exactly, where I need to hit real quick to get some stuff, and then, hide out or whatever you're gonna do.
By the way, go to the top right if you don't have battle packs, and if you do, go to the top left.
Oh, okay. I was like, wait, what? I was like,
of the Fortnite maps.
Thing?
Yeah, no, it's just really, I think it's a general kind of axiom to live by for Fortnite. Stay in the plane as long as you can, and then, I have the free game basically. I don't have battle packs or anything with perks, so I just go to the top right, and there's always something that you find like outside of some of those houses, and for some reason people always jump right away and kill each other before like you're even on the ground.
Well, Angelo, what do you do when you're on the ground?
I play games.
That's a terrible
lots of games.
Did you actually play lots of games?
Sure. What? You seem shocked.
Well, a little bit, but then you're just like, yeah, I did. What of it? I'm not going to talk about them.
I played the video games.
Flop it out, Angelo.
And I played the board games. No, I played Borderlands 2 a little bit more. I do not like Borderlands 2.
No, that's the final verdict.
Yeah, I don't like it. I'm not ready to say it is a bad game, but here's the deal, right? I played Borderlands 2, and I looked at a game that was in early access. I didn't buy it because it's expensive. Called it's a Warhammer 40K Diablo clone.
Ooh.
Which yes, it's called Warhammer 40K Inquisitor Martyr, which is a mouthful. But Inquisitor is you're playing as an Inquisitor, and the name of the ship that the single-player campaign takes place on is called the Martyr. There's a lot going on there. Like I said, I didn't play it. I had my wallet out, and I almost did. And then I'm like, but I don't have a lot of money.
Is this a Steam thing?
So, yeah, it's a Steam thing. It's early access, but it's real good from everybody that's been playing it. It sounds real good from what they're saying. I mean, watch some videos, make sure it's your thing. It handles its class system and its progression a little bit different than your typical Diablo clone, but it absolutely plays like one. But it also has like a cover system.
I'm looking at it right now. It's $50, and that's a lot to ask for an early access thing.
Sure is.
Yeah.
I still have a Diablo
there's a lot
expansion
going on
to play.
Right.
So I stared at that for a while and watched videos on it, and then I'm like, I'm gonna play Torchlight 2. So
there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. So I already own Torchlight 2, so I just played that. And I played a ranged character, and I looked at it and I said, I can tell you now what is wrong with Borderlands. I can tell you exactly what's wrong with Borderlands 2. It's all freaking guns, right? So you get your guns, you get your shield, you get your grenade mod, and a couple other weird things. But there's no... it's not the loot fest that these games need to be, right?
Really?
And the way the other games do this is you get all of these other pieces of equipment. Like in Torchlight 2, it's like you get a necklace and 2 rings and, 2 weapon slots, 1 in each hand, or you can like do sword and board type thing. And, then there's gauntlets and, or gloves, and there's armbands, and there's a cloak, and there's armor, and there's pants and boots. And it's like, what does Borderlands have? It has a shield.
I see
you know
what
I'm
you're
saying?
getting at.
And
You're right.
all of these things have different mods, so you can really tweak your character. That's where Borderlands is going wrong in the loot department, I think, is there's just not enough variety in the loot. It's like, I open a chest, there's more guns, and every one of them sucks. That's the other problem, is it's like, oh my gosh, this freaking, look at the damage on this submachine gun. Oh, right, it only gets 2 bullets in a clip. What moron made this?
Right.
Right? Like, this happens all the time in Borderlands 2. Like, 90% of these guns are just garbage.
I think that there's not enough opportunity for variety, because you can't have very many like AoE type of spells, such as like rings and things you would have for Torchlight or Diablo and stuff like that.
So,
where you have to mostly focus on that one point of view with the gun, and
it doesn't matter. There's ranged characters in Torchlight 2. Like, I'm playing an Outlander. All they do is just ranged characters.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
They use bows. Yeah, they use bows. They use pistols. They use shotguns. They use hand cannons, but it's all ranged, right? Like, that is one character, and there's more going on in that character than in any of the classes in Borderlands. I'm sorry, in Borderlands 2.
Yeah, I think it might be due to the perspective shift, because Torchlight is over the top, and that's what I mean.
Maybe
there might be more opportunity.
Why is that? Like, you can determine AoE in a 3D first-person game.
You should be able to, but I don't think that they really utilize it. At least I played mostly Borderlands 1, but it was mostly just point and click right at the center of the screen with the weapon,
You brought me right to my second beef, which is the perk system in Borderlands 2. It's just not as satisfying to get those upgrades. At least I don't think it is. And that I've played a couple of different classes now. I've talked to people that play another one, and it's like, hey, I walked. What are you going to do? Drop a turret? Right, because that's what your class does, right? Yeah. So we're gonna get another encounter. What are you gonna do? I'm gonna drop a turret. Okay. So what are you gonna do? I'm gonna send my robot death machine in there to kill people. What are you gonna do? I'm gonna sit out here and snipe them while my robot machine. Okay. Another encounter. What you see how this is going.
Every time.
Whereas, in Torchlight 2, it's like, okay, I'm getting swamped. I have to dodge, use my dodge ability to get out of there, and I'm doing this, and then, okay, now I'm going to switch to my rapid fire. I'm making decisions all the time.
Mm-hmm. No, you bring up great points, and that's actually, even though it's a first-person game, even as Borderlands 1, I was like, I want armor. I want,
right.
And, hey, the Oblivion, or the Elder Scrolls games are super popular, and people love getting gear in that, even though you mainly play it in first person. But it's a sense of progression. It's a sense of even if you're not seeing it, that you're equipped with this epic shoulder these epic shoulder pads or epic chest plate and stuff. You're like, yeah, like, I feel like a badass right now. And you also brought up something that I hadn't thought of before with it being just the guns. But yeah, what if for like Borderlands 3, they kind of took the Overwatch approach where it's like, well, this guy uses a lot of bows. This guy is like just flipping melee. Yeah. Even though like it's a shooter, right? You have that new character, Bridget, who's basically the Crusader from Diablo. She's got like a flail, but it's in a first person shooter perspective. And it's like, that's kind of cool. Like I would like, if Borderlands 3 kind of goes that far, I might be all over that game. Cause we talked about it last time, but I was left a little bit cold with the first game.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I talked to Theo I was playing with it. He goes, we started up another game. We didn't want to say anything, but about halfway through Borderlands, we're like, we've already done this so many times. I don't want to do it again. But they didn't want to say that to us because we had never played it before. And I'm like, it's okay, man. I'm already over it.
Right.
It didn't take long. I'm glad I got it on a deep discount because, oh boy.
Yeah.
And I don't regret buying it because now I know.
And knowing is half the battle. G.I. Joe!
I just, I would have always wondered, man, I had so much fun with the first Borderlands, but I'm just not catching the magic a second time. Also, I think I'm done with Mario Odyssey. Now,
what?
No. I got like over 700 freaking moons.
Oh, okay.
Like I got a lot of moons, and I know there's a couple of quick things I could go and just pick up. Like there's basically moons that I know I can just go get now that I just haven't gone back to get. But the thing is, I did all the hardest stuff in the game. So all of this feels like going back and like doing cleanup.
Oh, okay.
For like hundreds of moons, and I keep looking at that going, I don't know if I'm feeling this, right? So,
dude, you got to fulfill the prophecy and get all the moons.
You really want Nick to beat you like that?
I'm okay with it. So here's the deal.
Go infinite. Like, all the moons, Angelo.
I beat the game. I got the secret levels. Actually, there is some stuff I could go back and do in one of the other secret levels now that I think about it. There was, but there's secret levels in that game that I handled. So there might be a little bit more left in there, but I mean, so maybe I'll get 800. I don't see myself getting all 999 moons. I just don't. So
I honestly think that once you unlock like all of the levels, that you're good at that point. I'm not going to do even that much because I felt perfectly satisfied after beating the game. Then playing around for a little bit after that. But yeah, I think once you've unlocked all the worlds, it's like, okay, at that point, it's really just like kind of doing it just to do it, right?
Yeah.
Right. There's like one super epic level that I beat and I'm like, that's it. This is clearly the hardest level in the game. It's marketed as such in the game itself. That is me beating the game as far as I'm concerned, right? Like I can go back and do all these other challenges. And that's the other thing too, is I'm kind of mentioned this before, but sometimes that camera just actively tries to kill you. And one of these challenges is extremely difficult because of that stupid camera. And I just don't want to do it because I know I can make these jumps. I know I can do what I'm doing, but the camera is literally swinging around in ways that make it impossible. And that's not how I want to live my life. So I'm going to let that one go.
Tyrone Swift is listening and he's like, Angelo's not about that life.
That's what he says. I wasn't trying to necessarily channel him, but as the words came out of my mouth, I heard that.
That's a lot of moons you got, though.
Yeah,
it is. It's over 700. I'm not sure how many into 700, but I'm well into 700.
You can sprinkle those over so many bowls of cereal. Like,
are they marshmallow?
I'm assuming they're marshmallow. They look marshmallow to me.
Is there like a special thing that happens when you get them all, or is it doesn't really matter? And
I don't know. It doesn't matter to me.
I think the parachute turns like a glowy gold color, and it says 999 on it. That's what you get.
Really, what happens?
It is literally the Yoshi on top of like the castle.
I knew it would
like when you get the 120 stars.
That's even worse.
Or it's like getting all the Korok seeds. It's like, here's a poop.
At least you could like turn, I don't know, galaxy colored or something like that. Couldn't you be like invisible and you look like stars? That would be cool.
There are other things that the game does as you beat certain things that are pretty neat. So it's definitely worth exploring the game to see what it has to offer, but I don't think the amount of moons is necessarily that game's shining point. Just if you are a completionist and you want to do all this nonsense, here you go.
Mario's always
You know?
been about the levels, though.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and most 99.9% of those levels are top freaking notch, right?
Yeah, they are.
If they drop the ball on a couple of those challenges, I can think of 3 specific instances, like I said, where the camera just wants to murder you. But considering how many challenges are in that game, that's kind of all right.
The only one that I wasn't jazzed about was the Luncheon Kingdom. That was the only world where I was like, I really don't want to be here. And I was glad when I got enough moons to leave.
That level didn't flow right, and I'm not sure how else to explain it, but it didn't feel as cohesive as the other worlds did.
Mm-hmm.
Because half the time you have to possess one of those like fireballs and move around, and even then it was almost like kind of, I don't know how much I want to get into it because people are going to get there and figure this stuff out, right?
Yeah, it just didn't. It just wasn't as fun to me, and I think I've noticed that a lot of people seem to have that consensus on that particular world.
I think that was the weakest one of them, but it still wasn't that bad.
No. There's nothing in that game that's bad. It was just like, that was the one where I was like, yeah, I'm ready for this to be over. Where the others where I was like, this is really cool. I really like this look and this world and the music and everything. Like, I can hang out here for a while. And Luncheon Kingdom, I was like, yeah, I need those moons. I need to get off of this planet.
And there wasn't really that I think didn't have a whole lot of the fun surprises. Doesn't that one come right after Metro Kingdom?
It might.
I'm not sure about the order.
It might. No, I think it's before. And that's the other thing, is that you get teased about going to Metro Kingdom, and then you have to do the stop off in Luncheon Kingdom. It's like, oh, come on, guys. I was right there.
Right. And that is absolutely one of the highlights of that game. There's so much good stuff in the Metro Kingdom, right?
Yeah.
Like, I went back there after I beat the game to just, okay, let's see how many other moons I can get. And I was still finding stuff that I'm like, this is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I did build that epic Goomba stack that I showed you. 25 Goombas, sir.
Oh, I didn't count them. Yeah, Angelo sent a text of like a screenshot, and it was just like this tower of Goombas, and I was like, how? And he's like, I don't know.
You can do it consistently. It's very, very late game, but there's basically a room that you walk into, and if you're quick enough, you can stack them all up before things happen to them. And I figured it was fun. And it feels ridiculous. Every time you add one, like this wave goes up this huge tower of Goombas because they all kind of shift. It's fun. So yeah, that game just kept dropping delightful things until the very, very end, which is great. That's how you want to go out, right?
Yeah.
I could talk some board games, but I don't know how much more time we want to spend on this.
I was going to ask you, because we probably have a pretty hefty pack watch coming up, so it's up to you.
I'll do one of the quicker ones just to get it off the list.
Okay.
We played a game called Resistance, which I may have mentioned here before, but I don't know if I have. If anyone you guys have ever played like the dorm room game, what was it called? Mafia. Is essentially a very good version of that. So you have your group of people. It has to be more than 5, or you can't really do it, because the whole point is, we'll just do a 5-player game, for example. If there's a 5-player game, 2 of the players are spies, the other 3 are resistance members. So 2 of them are government spies. And the way it works is you have 5 rounds in the game, and judging by what happens on those rounds, you have to figure out which of the players are spies and which ones are resistance members. And whoever wins the most missions by the end, so first to 3 wins. So if the spies, if the spies manage to throw 3 of the missions, then they win. And if the resistance manages to succeed in 3 of the missions, they win. This is all determined by somebody who is determined. Like this token passes around. They're the leader for that round, and they toss little cardboard guns across the table to people they want to take on the mission. The people around the table vote on whether or not they like that arrangement. If they like it, they go. And these people then all take a card, and these cards say succeed or fail. So the only people that can make a mission fail are the spies. You cannot make the missions fail if you are not a spy. And those cards get dealt into the middle of the table face down. They get shuffled up so nobody knows who deals them. And then somebody just flips them over. And if a fail card comes out, you fail the mission. Only needs to be 1. So basically, you just have this information, and you need to start turning on your friends to figure out who the spies are or who the resistance members. Like, the resistance members are the ones that are out in the open, and everybody's trying to convince them that they're resistance, obviously. If you have the right group of people, this is a freaking blast, right? Because you all get way into it. And, no, you're a spy. I know what you look like when you lie. You're lying. That kind of thing. And it just rolls downhill, and you're laughing and you're yelling at each other because it's, again, if you have the right level of people, nobody's taking it too seriously, but everybody's very much trying to do this thing, and they're getting frustrated, but they're also laughing about how stupid this whole thing is because you're throwing around pieces of cardboard and doing this. We must have played that game a dozen times the first time we brought it out because I just had the right group of people, right? And we just were freaking... People were coming over. What game are you playing? Can I get that? Yeah, it's over there on the shelf, right? Like, we sold 3 copies of that game that night because people were just looking at us and what a good time we were having.
Once again, Angelo really needs to get a part-time job at this game store because he's already doing so much business for them.
We sold,
right?
Yeah. That's called resistance. Again, you have to have the right group of people, right? You have to have the right group of friends. You have to know each other. You have to be okay with this. But real fun. So.
Well, I'm actually glad that you brought that up since for Pack Watch we have a game that's all about cloak and daggery stuff. So why don't we jump into our new section called Pack Watch? Yes, this week, Pack Watch, we are covering Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty. I think this was probably a Patrick entry. It might have been mine.
Well, I mean, it's one of the best. It should be all of ours.
Right. Well, as far as actually submitting, but
right.
This is one that we all played, I'm sure. The
submission, decision to submit was in the first game, not the second one.
Fair enough.
Torture scene,
yeah.
Patrick. No, okay.
Got it.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Press the X button to submit.
Metal Gear Solid 2 was developed by Konami Computer Entertainment of Japan. This is before Kojima had his own production studio within the company.
And before they became a Pachinko manufacturer.
Yes. Published by Konami, released November 13th of 2001, directed and produced by Hideo Kojima. It has a freaking high Metascore, guys. It's 96, which is one of the highest PS2 games of the generation, or of the system. Ooh. Yes, this game is amazing.
Took everyone by surprise.
Definitely by surprise.
Yeah, not in a good way for me, but we'll go on.
Well, we'll get there. I've got some stories to tell, but definitely one of the first ones is obviously, and I think Patrick is the same way. So I waited a little bit to get my PS2. I actually bought it when Onimusha came out. But right around that time was also Zone of the Enders. And I bought Zone of the Enders, not for Zone of the Enders, but for the Metal Gear Solid 2 demo.
Which is what everyone did.
As did I.
Yeah.
Sir.
I mean, I played Zone of the Enders and I beat it, but not until after I had done everything I possibly could in the demo for Metal Gear Solid 2.
Right. I played that first as well. I even have the Zone of the Enders Collector's Edition remastered, with both of them, but I just look at the artwork. That's the best part about it.
It actually would have been neat because they hadn't released Metal Gear Solid HD collection yet, but wouldn't it have been cool if the HD collection of Zone of the Enders had a demo for Metal Gear Solid 2 HD? Man. That would have been glorious.
That would be fun.
But yeah, I mean, Metal Gear Solid 2 is probably the last time that I really spent a lot of time trying to crack open the game and do everything that I could and actively try to break it. Cause as I've said before, like I'm definitely like a paint by, or like a, color in the lines type of gamer. I don't spend a lot of time like trying to go outside of what the developer wants me to do. Right. And that's probably why I don't have as much fun with like open world games as some people do, because like when I play Grand Theft Auto, I'm not actively trying to cause as much mayhem as I can, or, you know, like do this weird trick by jumping off of a building. I'm like, no, here's the next story mission. Let me go drive there, do the story mission and so on. Right. Like that's just kind of the way that I play games. But Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2 were definitely times where I was like, no, there's so many weird things in here. Like, I need to see, like, all of these bottles breaking when I shoot at them, and I need to, like, you know, have them see my shadow on the floor, and, like, I would do the thing where I would trank a guard and then, like, put the silencer on my pistol, and then, like, shoot his arms and legs, but leave him alive. Like, weird stuff like that, because I was like, you can do that in this game, it's amazing! Like, just all sorts of things like that, and, We'll definitely get into it when I get to some of the anecdotes that I found, but that was like a very...
Did you do that mostly at the beginning, or like you wanted to be riding a lot? Because mostly like I found myself going back to that first part trying to find if I could be Snake in any way for the rest of the game.
Well, it's definitely in the beginning part of the game, but I think it's also because, well, one, that was the demo, so I spent a lot of time fooling around there, but then two, again, in the main game, I was like... Yeah, I'm just going to spend a lot of time like messing around and seeing what I can do to these guards before I go fight Olga. Just to see. And then also when you get into the like, you get the full game, like the part where you have to like photograph the Metal Gear, model, like from the different angles and stuff like that. And you have like that big room where they're watching the general talk to them. And, just having that many characters on the screen, I was like, whoa, this is PlayStation 2 right here.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a big, scope that I had never seen before. In fact, it was the 4th highest rated PS2 game of all time. And, I see on Metacritic, it's the 27th overall game.
Yeah.
So like, all-time greats.
Yeah.
I still remember watching the video for that before it was released. Like there was a demo video that went out. And again, we're talking early internet, and I was one of the few people that was like kind of on it, right? But they were still doing this. They were still putting the videos out there.
Mm-hmm.
I think this was like in Real Player or some tragically awful and thankfully dead format. But I remember being impressed by him walking into what looked like a pantry and shooting all the cans and the stuff.
Yeah.
And there was like a watermelon. Do you remember this?
Oh, yeah.
And the watermelon didn't, like, up until this time, whenever you shot something, it would explode, but it would always do the same thing, right? Like it was obviously a decal and pre-conscribed like jibs or whatever that it would break into.
Well, and if it even did, like most games at this point wouldn't even do that much. You would have like a bullet hole in it and then nothing happened to it.
I was talking about like on PC, right? Like I was playing PC games. Even PC games at the time didn't do this. Sorry.
Angela was the PC master race.
Yes. But when it looked like it looked like the bullets were doing, because you could see like the tracer from the bullet fire, and it would hit the melon, and then the melon would react specifically to that bullet. And then another one would hit it and would react to that bullet. And I'm like, how did they even do that? Like, it was just like, I watched that. I kept rewinding that one little section and watching it again and again going, that didn't just happen.
Yeah.
How do you even do that, right? Did they just make this model and break it into little pieces, and if the bullet hits that piece, it breaks off? That would take up way too much. Like, I have enough technical knowledge to know what kind of a burden that would put on your system, because there's multiple melons in this room. Like, I was just freaking trying to figure all this out. It just blew my mind. So, watermelon.
I do wonder how they programmed it, because they always had more objects in the environment that you could just like fool around with for no reason, pick them up and drop them. And I was always like looking in each room like for way longer than I should have. And maybe this is a bad thing because of it. But like I would just like pick up all those like magazines and stuff like that. And I'm just never sure what would be useful in a game like this. So it took so much longer because of that.
And it's interesting because apparently like Kojima was very adamant about using the power of the PS2 to simulate this realistic setting, less so than the graphics, to the point that when he debuted that like E3 trailer, that it's like that 9-minute trailer that Angela's talking about, he was worried that the game wasn't going to look good to people because he had spent so much time focusing on, like when you knock over, when you shoot this glass, like the ice cubes are going to come out and melt in real time. Things like that, like real fiddly things. But then, I mean, obviously it was like one of the best looking games that anybody had ever seen up until that point. But he wasn't focused on that. It just ended up being having a really great art design team and doing a lot of really interesting post-processing effects and depth, like messing with depth of field, and also just the way that, and this is very much a Kojima thing, like him directing cutscenes and stuff like that, were very particular, and it gives the game a very very good look.
He got so much into every single aspect of it, and so many aspects that he got into never even made it into the final conclusion of like the plot or the story or even the gameplay itself. Like there's originally supposed to be a plot about Iran and Iraq, and it was supposed to have like a bunch of American flags, and like all of those things got taken out. There's supposed to be a 2-player mode that like was like versus or something like that never made it into the final game. And I want to see all these assets and like where he really would have gone with it, because even so, like what ended up being was greater than most games ever will be, because like there's a lot of games will get like the storyline taken out, such as Destiny, and then people will just like be apologists for it for years and years. But this like got things taken out of it because of like the political atmosphere at the time, and like it wasn't even like everything it was supposed to be, and yet it's still like one of the top quarter of games that have ever existed.
Yeah. It's really cool to go back and see like what they were thinking of, because apparently originally the game was going to only take place on the tanker, and it was going to be like a much larger vessel, and you were going to fight all these bosses in this area, and they scrapped that. Again, Patrick, it was like dealing with like a nuclear, powered weapon that was being, sent to like the Middle East or something like that, but they felt that was too much of a hot button issue. Also, and in the most Kojima of Kojima ideas, it wasn't going to be called Metal Gear Solid 2 originally. It was going to be called MGS3, and the 3 was supposed to represent like the 3 tallest buildings in New York City. Like it wasn't going to be like the numeral 3. It was going to be like, the 3 tallies, one for each building, which, considering what happened the year that this game came out, it's a really good thing that they didn't go for that.
Yeah.
And I do remember, I was working at Game Fellows when this game came out, and I remember after 9/11 happened, like reading the stories, like, Metal Gear is having to do like some very last minute changes to like final cutscenes before the game goes gold, because they very prominently featured the World Trade Center buildings, in the last act of the game. They got it out on time, but yeah, that was a very big, I remember that and the original Spider-Man movie being like the 2 really big media things that year that needed to have things changed. Cause I think it was the trailer for Spider-Man where they had to take out the World Trade Center.
It's so funny because this is like a game that preaches like the fallacies of data manipulation, and like how you can create a belief in a series of, people, like a bunch of people, just because of the ways that you like release media, and then they changed it like in their very own game because they thought it was too sensitive as well. They have been manipulated maybe in some way by their own thoughts.
The Patriots got to them. They didn't even realize it.
Yeah, so what are the Patriots? Let's get into it.
Dude, we do not have time to get into what the Patriots are.
Unravel a Kojima plot in 15 minutes? No.
It's not going to happen.
The original game that I like stayed home from school to finish to watch the cutscene at the end, because it's like as much interactive movie as it is game. Just because there's like an entire movie of cutscenes in it, though, like that have to be talked about. I mean, maybe we're just going to be censored right here. I don't know.
Well, I mean, this is also the game that, my stupid religious upbringing, like, made me think was possessed at one point, because when you get towards the end with Raiden, naked in the hallway, and Colonel Campbell starts like glitching out on you.
Raiden, turn the game console off right now.
What did you say?
The mission is a failure. Cut the power right now.
What's wrong with you?
Don't worry, it's a game. It's a game just like usual.
You'll ruin your eyes playing so close to the TV.
What are you talking about?
And saying all that weird stuff, I was like, it was like 3 a.m. when I was playing this in my room, and I'm like, what? Is there a demon in my PlayStation? What is going on here? It's like the freakiest thing. Like it scared the crap out of me. It wasn't even a horror game.
It is supposed to be unnerving, but not like that. Right. I don't think.
Yeah, it was a particular cocktail of, my upbringing combined with like the time of, night that I was playing it. And yeah, it was weird.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of weird inconsistencies with like this game and modern society, like how it predicted the whole like meme movement and like fake data being distributed, like how memes aren't technically data, and like the sons of whatever found ways to manipulate data as well, that like what didn't include data. And I just, it's funny because Games Radar this week came out with a very long article that if you saw me post to our Nerds Without Pants website or Facebook, that you'll like be able to read it. And like, I don't know why, but like it came out on the Blaster this week, and like this big article came out for the first time in a few years. And like, it just seems like all the data is being manipulated at a macro level as well, guys. I think that the Patriots are listening.
Right. And it's like they caused those articles to materialize because they knew that this was coming. This episode was
they
coming.
knew it was on this podcast.
I'll tell you what's funny though, is it's like we're being silly to an extent, but there is very real talk about data manipulation and, using social media to try to program people to do or believe and behave in certain ways.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's stuff people are talking about right now. And that's stuff that this game, do I want to say this game addresses it? Because I don't think it does, but it sort of hints at, the whole possibility of using information to manipulate people, right? Like that's kind of the underlying message of the entire game. It's not as specific as what I just said, I don't think. And
I think it shows that, like, say what you will about Kojima, mm-hmm. but there's something he's almost ahead of his time in a lot of ways. Because, like, the first time that I heard the word meme was actually the trailer for Metal Gear Solid 3, and then that became a thing. But, like, I was not aware of that as a concept until that. Now it's like, oh, interesting. And, then now, I mean, it's a very big part of everything. I mean, there's a new meme that like takes everybody by storm like every couple weeks, and
yep.
That's like you see it everywhere, and then you see the way that it gets morphed and changed into other things, and then it gets blended with other memes, and then that becomes a new meme, and it's maybe we're actually spending more time on that than we should. But
I mean, if you think about the context of like Metal Gear Solid 2's like plot itself, like it being a recreation of the original Shadow Moses incident, it's kind of a meme of the first game.
Yeah.
That like at a plot level, it's so weird to think, but there's so many things I never thought of until like I watched these cutscenes, like an AI being able to control all of data and things like that were based on actual people's thoughts. Like I'm not sure if I had ever seen that anywhere before.
Yeah, and I haven't like really like sat down to play this game all the way through since 2001. I mean, I've played a little bit of the HD collection and stuff like that, but I really should like try to make a concerted effort to go back and play all the way through it, because there's probably a lot of it that makes a lot more sense now. I will say that like part of the reason that I don't go back to it is because I think that the ending parts are like way too absurd, where it's, and I've talked about this before, where it's literally like, haha, I'm the actual bad guy. And then somebody else is like, ha, actually, I'm the actual bad guy.
I will remind you that the game opens with somebody screaming, I live on through this arm.
No, that is it. Wait, is that in Metal Gear Solid 2?
Sure is.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah. You're right.
You knew what ride you were getting on, sir.
Who was that? Ocelot?
It's Ocelot, but
yeah.
he's got Liquid Snake's arm, I believe,
Yeah.
right? Isn't that the... Yeah.
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 Just
And damn,
explain
even
that
would
to
just
people.
Yeah.
Just take that one
Even
second.
that would take 5 minutes.
Ocelot, Revolver Ocelot shows up with Liquid Snake's arm and screams, "I live on through this arm." That's all you need to know about how crazy this game gets.
That's why you need to play from the beginning, or just watch like a playthrough or cutscenes of it, because man, there's so much storyline that is just out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to put a link to it in the show notes, but I highly recommend anybody who's listening to this who's interested to go check out Digital Foundry's video on Metal Gear Solid. It's about an hour long, but it's really cool because not only do they do like a really good history lesson of like the making of the game and stuff like that, but it's Digital Foundry. So they get really deep into the nitty gritty on how the game performed and the way the cutscenes are done. And they do this really neat thing where they actually, I think, do they were able to get into the game code or something and look around at the actual assets. So like the way that you see like the cutscenes developed, where it's like at the beginning of the game, the tanker scene, when they cut to Ocelot, they showed it to where Ocelot has like this like orange, like lighting around him in the cockpit of the helicopter, but the only part of the helicopter that's rendered is the seat and the propeller. And if you zoom out, that's all it is. And then if you zoom down, you can see Snake that's also enveloped in this orange light, but it's only because like the way they're rendering that particular cutscene, all that they're showing is Snake on the tanker and then Ocelot in that cockpit. And so the lighting changes when it's to Ocelot, but then it switches back to the bluish tint that it is in the weather on the tanker. And it's like little stuff like that. It was like so fascinating to watch. So I highly recommend it. Like I said, link will be in the show notes, but it was a really cool, very informative video.
This.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This sounds fantastic.
It's awesome. They also do like a really good breakdown of all the different versions of the game and how they run and how they differ.
I want to say that I don't know if a character has grown on me more than Raiden did, because like I really hated the fact that I played it as him as first, but like as you think about it, it's great that it happened, and it's just like one of the most jarring things in the history of a video game that nobody ever expected. And then they go on to have like a good platinum game with it.
Yeah, and also he comes into his own in Metal Gear Solid 4. And I definitely, we couldn't talk about this game without talking about that big thing, which is that, you were led to believe that Solid Snake was obviously going to be the protagonist of this game, because why wouldn't he be? And then, oh, nope, actually he's only in the game for like the first 2 hours, and then the rest of the time you're this new guy. Like, what?
Yeah, and everybody already played it as the demo, so.
Yeah.
See, now, here's the thing. I really wish, so I'm getting like neat opportunities here where I can introduce things to my kids and like, oh, hey, here's Chrono Trigger. I'm not giving you any information other than this is Chrono Trigger. Tell me what you think, right? Like, what does a child who is not brought up to necessarily, I mean, I have definitely talked about the fact that I like Chrono Trigger, right?
Right.
But he hasn't grown up with all of the sort of baggage that's associated with it.
Right.
So I'm real curious to see what he comes back with after playing it. Like, I played it a little bit, put it down. It was good. I wonder. So,
dude, that almost makes me want to like curate my kids like games, like maybe put them in like a house where they can only get certain games at certain points, where like you have to play Chrono Trigger first.
So you're 15 now. It's time for you to play Chrono Trigger, because I was 15 when I played it.
What I'm getting to though is like, if there was, the thing is, I know he couldn't go back to MGS, like the first one, because that I could play that because I grew up with those graphics, but going back to that, I think
it's difficult.
Yeah. That's why you got to start them out with that.
Well,
you can't tell them other shit exists until I play it.
Oh man, that would be fun, but no.
The genie's already out of the bottle.
I would love to see what the impact is, divorced of all of the hype that we endured leading up to Metal Gear Solid 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we were on that ride. Like, that was the whole thing. This was almost one of the first games that had that much hype behind it, right?
Yeah.
And then we all had that turn where it was just, what is going on here? Huh? What?
I don't know if I like this.
Right? And I'm just thinking, like, would he even go into that and be like, oh, that's neat. It's a sequel where you don't play as Snake. Okay, fine. Right? Like, would it be that much of a slap in the face to somebody who just, hey, here's MGS1, here's MGS2. Play one, then play the other. And maybe he'll play them both and just go, yeah, that was neat. And it has no impact or just very little. Like, oh, I was surprised you didn't play as Snake, but it was a good game. And that's the end of that thought.
I think it's probably the latter. Like I do think that Snake is so well established in Metal Gear Solid 1 that the transition would be like, oh, what? Like, whoa, this is weird. But then you just get over it. I do think that the strangest part about the switch over is that there's a very obvious place where it makes sense to switch back to Solid Snake at the end, and they don't.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that I thought was really like a missed opportunity there. But I kind of get why yeah, it was definitely intentional. And I get why they did it now. But like, I remember playing it initially, I was like, yeah, I really should be Snake now. Like, it was cool to be Raiden for this whole game. I loved it, but I'm ready to be Snake again.
Right. But I guess what I'm saying is the whole time I was playing MGS2, and in fact, I'll be honest with you, I did not beat MGS2. I played it for a significant amount, but I didn't beat it, was because I was like, I never got back to playing Solid Snake.
Right.
And I think that made it easy for me to walk away from it. And the whole time I was thinking, oh, this is that cool thing where they tell a story here, then they go to a story here, then they go back to this story. Like, that was what I was expecting his new experimental narrative was going to be. And it wasn't that at all. It was just, you're done with Snake.
Right. Can you imagine, though, if this happened today, how things would be? Like, with all of the gamers being like, how dare they do this? Like, I demand a refund. Like,
yeah, it would be like MGS5, which doesn't have an ending either.
You couldn't do it today because it would be spoiled immediately. Like, people would be so mad about it that you couldn't keep it a secret. It would not be your surprise the way it was.
No,
you know
but
I mean?
Well, I'm not saying the surprise. I'm saying like the gamer demanding that, like, you know, Kojima be fired, and that, you know, this needs to be like refunded to them, or they better fix this, and, you know, like, they better like change the story for their, you know, because blah, you know, like, just the whiny gamer. Like, I don't think you can do this in this day and age. I mean, one, obviously you couldn't do it without it getting spoiled. But two, I don't think that the audience of today is cool with this.
Right. But also, should you be cool with being misled to begin with? Now, I understand why he did it, and I still think it's a neat thing that he did it. But honestly, the people that complained, I could totally understand why they were complaining. They were being led to believe one thing, and what they got was something different, right? Now, again, how far do you go with that is the real issue here. Because also, a lot of times people go a little too far.
Yeah, because I mean, he didn't show Solid Snake. If memory serves, I don't think he shows Solid Snake like running around in the, you know, big shell areas. Like, I think the trailer was only the tanker.
It was. Exactly. Yeah. It was just the tanker, and it was just Snake. You never saw Raiden at all.
Yeah.
And that was part of the reason why everybody thought, well, and rightfully, you know, and they were led to believe, like, let's be honest, there was very much intent behind this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It wasn't like, I don't want somebody to listen to this and think that we're saying, well, you know, people just weren't paying attention. No. It was a very direct effort to make you believe you were going to be playing Solid Snake in Metal Gear Solid 2.
Yeah.
You know?
And to be like, just like to, so I can be that guy, like, and you do play Solid Snake in Metal Gear Solid 2.
Yeah,
you know, you just don't play him for the entire game. But I will say, so this is, before we move on to like listener stuff and everything, and I have like one last little tidbit I found, but I did want to say that from a personal level, this was when I really realized that EGM, Electronic Gaming Monthly, had really grown with me, as a publication, because Metal Gear Solid 2 for the magazines, Konami said, if you want to run the review before the game comes out, which that's how all reviews were in print form, you cannot discuss Raiden, right? EGM was like, we cannot review this game without discussing this. So they said, hey, look, we're not going to have a Metal Gear Solid 2 review this month. It's going to be next month after the game comes out, because we cannot in good conscience, review this game and tell you about it without spoiling something. And then you got to the review, and they were very clear. They said, look, if you keep reading this review, we are going to spoil something that's very important. But, but they did it because they were like, we need to talk about this in order to explain our score. Right. And I was like, that, there was like something there. I was like, yeah, these guys really like take this seriously. And I really appreciated that at the time.
Yeah, that's cool.
But one last thing before we move on to listener feedback. One thing that I found, two things. I'm sorry. So the whole thing about the switch to Raiden, there was a gameplay reason for it that Kojima had, which was that he didn't see the point in having someone like give tutorial tips to the grizzled Solid Snake because, he's an expert soldier.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. But the other reason is that a lot of the female, like testers on Metal Gear Solid 1 were like, oh, like all these types of games only have like grizzled old men in them. There's never any like handsome young men. Which I find so funny because that's like such a Japanese thing where it's like, at this point, it's all handsome young men. There are no grizzled old men in Japanese games anymore. Like, that was literally the reason that the character of Vaughn was created in Final Fantasy XII is because they decided that Bosch, who was going to be the original main character, was too old at the ripe old age of like 27 or whatever.
That's crazy.
So I just thought that was funny.
It is funny. And it's totally true. I can't think of one. And if there's somebody over like the age of 30, like you said, they're considered like an old complete geezer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which makes me feel very self-conscious.
Yeah.
I mean, not really, but I find that to be very funny over there, especially when like, Japanese life spans are pretty, they live to a ripe old age most of the time. If they don't kill themselves from the salarymen, stress level. One last thing before we get into listener stuff is that there was, oh man, this is definitely a product of its time, but also a product of like where it was developed. But there was going to be a villain named Chinaman.
Okay.
Modeled after Jet Li. But his name, honest to goodness, was going to be Chinaman.
Huh.
Yeah. There's a lot to unpack there, but I'm glad that didn't end up in the game.
Yeah.
And we ended up with Fat Man.
Yeah, that doesn't age too well either, but it lasts better than Chinaman.
Yeah. It's more about the ideas in this game, not the names of the characters. Solidus, Liquid, Solid.
True.
Solidus.
Yeah.
Substance, Subsistence.
We never got Gaseous Snake.
Gaseous
Yeah. What about Plasma Snake?
Over at pixelbit.com, we've got a handful of comments. Superstep says, as for Metal Gear Solid 2, I probably have more vivid memories of that game than the original Metal Gear or Twin Snakes. A big part of that was being old enough to see all the hype for it. I still love that opening theme and really wish the rights to it weren't in question. I asked him about that, and apparently there's like some sort of weird rights issue with like Russia or something. He wasn't quite sure of all of the stuff. That sounds like an Angelo rabbit hole to go down. He says, it would be the track to use for a trailer, were MGS ever made into a movie. As for the actual game, I played through it on normal and really wasn't that stealthy. There was a lot of barreling into rooms and shooting everything, then hiding in a locker patiently after enough enemies and time went by. I was never a super fan of Snake, so Raiden didn't bother me. I played for the conspiratorial story more so than the characters. Having said that, I do remember the bosses, including Fat Samurai Rollerblade Man, Underwater Vampire, and Rooftop Forearms. Great game. I don't know if you actually remember those characters, Super Step.
He remembers them differently than we do. We'll just say that.
Tyrone Swift says, if anyone ever questions Raiden, you ask that person, do you think Solid Snake, a pack-a-day smoker, could do no-handed cartwheels and still manage to keep his junk covered? Do you? Sure, he may have been a little whiny, but hey, I didn't see his penis, even though I tried to. Anyways, Metal Gear Solid 2 is awesome. It has one of my favorite parts in all of gaming where Raiden is naked and the codec will not stop ringing. I mean, we've all been there, right? Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go Google some risque Chun-Li fan art and try to forget naked Raiden. Wish me luck.
I'm sorry.
Whoa.
Did you want me to elaborate on the whole little thing about the music bit, or?
No, I was just saying that, or do you know?
Okay.
Do you know the reasoning?
Yeah. There
Oh,
was
yeah.
some Russian composer who composed a piece that is the da-na-na-na-na-na-na piece.
Really?
Like it has that same melody hook in it. But it's more of a classical piece than say the Metal Gear Solid theme is. But it's like almost note for note the exact same thing.
Interesting.
Which is where the controversy comes from.
Huh. I did not know that. That's interesting. I will say, Tyrone, like, let's not kid ourselves. You didn't have to Google risque Chun-Li fan art because you have a folder on your desktop. So just don't front.
Oh, yeah. And also, you could just look at that whenever you want. It's cool. San Noah's around.
San Andreas says, I skipped MGS2 on its first go-around on the PS2. My sights were set on games like Final Fantasy X and Devil May Cry. Yeah, 2001 was a great year. He says, I did play it some as part of the MGS HD collection on PS3, but since I wasn't that invested in the series and had already read a few spoilers, the plot twists weren't as shocking to me as they would have been if I had been a fan back in 2001. I never finished it. Yeah, I can see that. And I think that kind of speaks to, your thought, Angelo, is like, like maybe it doesn't have the same impact. Either if you already know it going in, or if you're just not that invested in the story to begin with.
I think I stopped right before the real big stuff kind of went crazy.
Sounds like it.
Like the Campbell moment and all that other stuff that you were talking about. I definitely didn't get that far.
Okay,
and that's late, right?
Yeah. We're talking like the last couple hours of the game.
Man, you need to just watch the last cutscene.
Well, I've heard so much about this game now. It's unavoidable this far removed from that game.
Yeah.
I still want to experience it. Don't get me wrong.
It's like 45 minutes long.
Sure, I'm sure it is because it's Kojima.
Well, and
it's popcorn. It's cutscene time.
If you watch that Digital Foundry video, they cover a lot of that stuff too, so you'll get the highlights of it. Lastly, a Pixel Bit, Fire in the Hole says, first, the E3 2000 trailer that was 9 minutes of Snake and beautiful graphics taking out Russian soldiers, shootouts taking out glass and other surroundings and that awesome music. This led to me, may or may not, buying Zone of the Enders primarily for the MGS2 demo. Right there with you. He says, I did enjoy Zone of the Enders, but probably play the demo of MGS2 for easily 50 plus hours. All right, you got me beat there. I probably put maybe 10 or 15 into it. He says, my brother and I were ultra hyped for this game, probably the most hyped I've ever been for a video game in my life. Only Final Fantasy X comes remotely close. The end of the demo where Revolver Ocelot grabs his arm and becomes Liquid Snake practically had me screaming. This was the first video game I ever pre-ordered, and when the game came out, my brother and I each got our own copies of the game and played simultaneously, checking in with each other throughout breaks. After the tanker level, the twist of playing as Raiden for the remainder of the game was a bummer at first, but I eventually got over it. The bosses were fun and different from the original, the setting and story were intriguing, and the end had you questioning everything about what you just saw. Although the original MGS is my favorite in the series, and my favorite game of all time, I like the gameplay more in MGS2, and the story more in MGS. MGS2 is just about as close to perfect as it gets in my opinion, still a blast to play. I own just about every version of this game ever released. MGS2 for PS2, MGS2 Substance for Xbox, MGS Substance for PS2, the Document of MGS2, Metal Gear Solid HD Collection for PS3, and Metal Gear Solid HD Collection for Vita. That sounds like me with Final Fantasy IV, my friend. I acknowledge that you have a plot problem because I have a similar problem.
I just had a thought.
Yeah.
Because he just mentioned all those versions. There was the GameCube remake of the original Metal Gear Solid.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's got issues.
I played it all the way through, though. It has really good cutscenes as well.
I was going to say, for the purposes of maybe presenting this in a format my child would not look at and go, no, thank you, almost immediately, maybe I should pick up a copy if they're not ridiculous.
You're talking about for the GameCube? The
yeah.
Twin Snakes? Yeah, I don't know what the price is going for. I will say that there are some unforeseen problems that arise with shoehorning the MGS2 gameplay into the first game. For example, like when you're on the catwalk in the tank hangar at the beginning of the game, the footsteps will alert the guards on the bottom floor, which never happened in the original version.
Right.
And also, like, you can take out Ocelot in the boss battle, like, super easy by just going into first person and blasting him. Because, you know, in the original top-down version, you had to, like, kind of line up your shots and move around and stuff. But here you can just, like, peek around the pillars and just take him out. So little things like that are a little weird. But And also the cutscenes are bonkers because it was the director of Devil May Cry 3 that
I know.
was behind that monstrosity.
I was like, okay, these are a little ridiculous, and then he did a kickflip off of a rocket that got shot by I think that's the infamous one, right?
That's the infamous one, yeah.
I saw that completely unprepared because my roommate at the time had that copy and he was playing it, and he just. I still remember what happened. Like, we both looked at each other after the cutscene. He goes, "Well, thank you, Silicon Knights," and that was the end of it.
Right, and it's not their fault. Like that's
no, it's not.
Yeah, but yeah, I think I just like kind of threw my GameCube controller up, and I was like, I guess, sure.
Like he's badass, but that's not that. He's not that flavor of badass.
Exactly.
You got it wrong.
Yeah,
he's the flavor of badass where he would sit there and the missile would go whizzing by his head and he wouldn't flinch.
Right.
Like that's.
You're exactly right. Wrapping up this edition of Pack Watch, if you are interested in picking up this game and playing it for yourself, there's a bunch of different ways to do it. If you find it on the PlayStation 2, you're looking at between $5 and $15. You can buy the Substance version on Xbox for between $3 and $20, although apparently it is an inferior version of the game, according to Digital Foundry. I thought that was pretty interesting. PS3 HD collection is going to run you between $15 to $30. Same thing for Xbox 360. The Vita for a physical copy is going to actually run you between $15 to $35, I think, because physical Vita games there weren't a lot of those. So, yeah, like a lot of people just went straight digital for the Vita. Lastly,
all day.
Lastly, it was released for the PC, but it is not on Steam. You can find a boxed copy of the game for between $20 to $150. And I think this is really just for like big box PC collector type people. But keep in mind that if you want to play it on PC, there's a lot of hoops that you got to jump through in order to make that happen. So you're probably just better off looking for an updated console version. That's probably it for Metal Gear Solid 2, unless you guys have some closing comments.
No.
It's been a long show.
It's a good game. I really want to go back and finish it now. The other thing was I got too distracted with like the screwing around, right?
Right.
I remember that being a thing too. I just got way too into. I got to get all these people's dog tags. It's like, no, you do not, and don't even try.
Yeah.
Right. I was gonna say, if you want to make this game miserable for yourself, try to do all that extra crap.
Right.
Instead of just play through the game the first time. If you want to go back later and be an absolute madman,
Patrick,
you go ahead. Don't do it first time.
No, that's why I was going to say, like, almost don't play it. Like, just watch the game itself being played, because you'll probably have a better time, especially if you can't get past, like, older graphics or something like that. But I did look up a couple of stats. The longest cutscene was actually, like, around 20 minutes long, but it comes in, like, a sequence that's, like, 40 to 45 minutes long, which is only second to a sequence that's in like Metal Gear Solid 4 where they really went overboard, and there was an epilogue that was 108 minutes long for a cutscene.
What?
Like that.
But you say overboard, I say perfection.
Yeah.
I eat that up with a spoon.
Minutes though?
Yeah, but
Like,
this paved the way. This was
No. So 180-minute cutscene you have to prepare for. You have to have like snacks ready.
This is true. I will say one of the great things about Final Fantasy XIV is that it will warn you when you're coming up on a really long ass cutscene. It'll tell you, hey, this is about to initiate. Yeah, it's like this is about to initiate a really long cutscene. Like, be sure you have time for it, and then you can select yes or no. And there's been times when I'm like, oh, I don't have time for that right now. I'll come back to that later.
What if you need to pee?
I think you can pause it.
Can you pause cutscenes?
I think you can pause cutscenes in Metal Gear Solid 2. You
just
definitely can in
want
4.
to. That's the thing. You never want to pause a cutscene.
Yeah, I just hold it.
Yeah. It's so glorious.
Also,
FMV.
Also glorious is the Mega Buster of Destiny, which I am now about to crack open to find the next Pack Watch topic.
Metal Gear Solid 3.
We will put that back in if it comes out.
Oh, come on, Metal Gear Solid 3 is awesome. It's like
not right after MGS.
Oh, right.
That's all I'm saying.
Right.
I think 2 might be better than 3.
I like 3 better. 3 is my second favorite.
I did initially, but was it because like I got to play as Snake again?
This makes me happy. Next time on Pack Watch, we will be discussing God of War for the PlayStation 2. That's going to be just about perfect, because God of War is coming out for PS4 right after we record that episode, so...
And that...
Damn, that'll get us hyped.
Jar years is doing its job.
Yeah.
Pretty well.
It's almost... I don't know if it's the Mega Buster of Destiny, or if it's like the Magic 8-Ball of Destiny, because it almost seems to know exactly what we need.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're watching you pick it. Like, it's really happening, folks.
Yeah, and you can probably hear it on the recording of me swirling around in there, like, digging. So, like, this is a real thing. I didn't make this up. For stage select, Patrick, remind us what we're going to be doing.
We're going to find our spirit animal video game character.
Yes. And then you can also send any stories, anecdotes, or thoughts about God of War for PS2. Again, you can either go to pixelbit.com and comment in the show thread for episode 132, or hit us up on Twitter at NWPcast. And again, we're going to want those by 7:30 Central Time on April 19th, the day before God of War comes out. Also the day before Super Troopers 2 comes out. That's going to be a very good day for me.
Wow. Meditate on it, folks. Your spirit animal video game character is a serious thing.
That's right.
Can't change it. Well, actually you can, but...
Yeah. That's going to do it. So you can also always find us on Twitter. Patrick.
I'm at some boss.
Angelo, before you conk out.
I'm at a roguish ham.
You can find me at Julian_Titus. Thanks for listening, everybody. And keep it pantsless, Internet. Goodbye.
Honestly, though, you have played the game for a long time. Don't you have anything else to do with your time?